Why is Australia so strangely empty? Why haven't we discovered so much of the ocean? Is our planet a perfect sphere? And was the Earth once more purple than green? I bet you didn't know these facts about our planet. So let's find it all out. Australia is really massive. To make it easy to understand its size, it's nearly as large as the entirety of Europe. Home to around 26 million people, Australia is among the countries with the least population per area. It's ranked only 55th for the highest population in the world, while it has the 6th largest land area. Why is so much of it empty? A good guess would be the many dangerous animals hiding behind every rock. At least this is enough for me to avoid Australia. But there's one specific reason to explain this. The dryness of Australia ensures that 85% of the population lives within 30 miles of the coast, and 80% of them live along the eastern side, where rainfall is more common. But although there is an overall lack of rainfall, only 20% of Australia is unlivable desert, and only 40% is considered not habitable by human standards. The water consumption is actually higher than their average rainfall each year, but there is a further ancient water source hidden way below, which can support a much larger population. It's one of the largest underground freshwater resources in the world, the Great Artesian Basin. It covers a staggering 656,000 square miles, which is 1/5 the size of Australia. It holds enough water to cover the Earth under a 1.5 feet deep layer of water. Or, more usefully, it could provide enough water for thirsty Australians over the next 1,500 years. Only 6.5% of Australia has soil suitable for farming, so this doesn't seem like a huge amount. But in case you forgot, Australia is big, and this small percentage is about the size of France. With this massive area available for farming, Australia has more than enough to feed its population, with a further 70% of agriculture products that are exported overseas. So, with plenty of land, food, and water, why are the population figures so low? A very slow migration process is the reason. First, only people from the United Kingdom lived there. Then, they opened their borders to other Europeans, and this restriction remained in place until 1973. You would think almost 200 years would be enough time for a lot of people to migrate, but Australia was just so far away. The risk of traveling such a long way and the cost of the journey meant that people from Europe prefer the shorter and cheaper options to migrate elsewhere, like Canada or the USA. For the past 2,000 years, people have understood that Earth is round. But did you know that it's not a perfect sphere? Through the wobbly rotation of Earth, our planet constantly changes its size, very slowly of course. The North and South poles are surprisingly flat. Earth is pretty much like a ball being squished. Imagine there's a giant hand with the fingers pressing at both poles. Because of this pressure, the equator pushes a little outwards. Along with an uneven gravitational field, Earth has loads of gravity glitches, some positive and others negative, creating an uneven, rocky, and bumpy surface. Some places on Earth have more gravity than others. If you weighed yourself along the equator, you would weigh 0.5% less than at the poles. Not a whole lot, and definitely not worth the trip to change your weight. If you were to measure the length from the center of the Earth towards the furthest point of Earth, you would be shocked that Mount Everest isn't at the end of it. Instead, it's along the equator, which is the pushed-out part. Ecuador's mountain Chimborazo would actually be the tallest point on Earth, as it's the furthest from the center. We still have around 80% of the ocean to map, which is crazy considering how much of the solar system we've explored in comparison. But we're still aware of many of the unbelievable details about the ocean. It covers over 80% of the world's surface, where 94% of the Earth's wildlife lives. And from some of the life in it, up to 80% of the world's oxygen is produced mainly from plankton, algae, and bacteria. One of the most famous, already mapped places is the Mariana Trench. It's the deepest point on Earth, as low as almost 7 miles deep. That's a huge, 5 times the length of the Grand Canyon, and deeper than Mount Everest is tall. It's also home to one of the most ancient seabeds on Earth, casually laying low for about 180 million years. The pressure at the bottom is over 1,000 bars, but although this is 1,000 times more than normal pressure, life still flourishes here. Throughout the ocean, there is an estimated over 3 million shipwrecks lying in the murky depths. Countless artifacts sit there untouched, and there could be more than all the world's museums. The mid-ocean ridge is the longest in the world, reaching 40,000 miles. That's almost 10 times the size of the Andes, the longest mountain range on land. The sun is the reason behind the blue and aqua colors of the ocean. This color isn't from the reflection of the sky, though they are both blue for the same reason. The surface of our planet receives white light from the sun, and it absorbs the orange, red, and yellow light stronger. It doesn't absorb the blue light so much, so it returns to how we see it. Of course, this only occurs based on how pure the water is. If the water is full of mud or algae, they scatter the light and overpower the water's natural blueness. There are many factors that determine what color we see on our planet. Could you believe that the Earth was green before? Instead, it was purple. Chlorophyll in our atmosphere absorbs mainly blue and red wavelengths from the sun and reflects the green ones to what we see our planet as today. Long ago, ancient microbes called retinal dominated the Earth instead of chlorophyll. They absorbed green light and reflected red and violet light. Those microbes had a simpler structure, so they were easier to produce in the low oxygen environment of the early Earth. They provided our planet with a purplish color instead of green. But chlorophyll is more efficient, and as the Earth was developing, it eventually took over. Imagine that billions of years ago, faraway observers could see our home as a small purple dot. I wonder if we could have also been purple. Probably not. The biggest tree on Earth is a giant sequoia named General Sherman. It stands over 280 feet, almost reaching the height of a 26-story building. They believe it to be 2,700 years old, with a circumference of 1,000 inches. Its weight is a staggering 1,800 tons. That's heavy, but it isn't the heaviest living thing on Earth. In Utah, a huge grove of trees called Pando works like a single colony of trees. The massive root system connects all of them together with up to 47,000 stems. It weighs up to 6,000 tons and is 80,000 years old. It makes it the oldest living thing known to humans. Now, what about the biggest area of one being? Off the coast of Western Australia, a seaweed grows to an unthinkable size. The Poseidon's ribbon weed has been growing for 4,500 years, spreading underground clone shoots. It's all connected and shares the same DNA with most of its shoots. It covers a massive 77 square miles, the same size as 28,000 soccer fields, or the size of Nebraska. And it won't stop there either, as it continues to grow by 2 feet each year. It's hard to even picture the scale of these enormous beings. Now, just imagine if they were all purple. South Korea has a rich culture, but some of their museums are far from being traditional. They even have a place called Poo Poo Land. You got me right. This museum is all about feces, human gases, and more. It's 3 floors of wacky and colorful exhibits that will make your Instagram followers go wild. The bravest ones can eat out of a fake toilet pot while in this museum. But the real fun begins when it's time to leave. You'll have to slide your way out through a dark room that mimics your digestive system. South Korea houses the blackest building you'll ever see. The Vanta Black Hyundai Pavilion is covered with Vanta Black paint, which is like the ninja of all paints. It's super black and reflects less than 1% of light. The pavilion was created for the crisp, white backdrop of the 2018 Winter Olympics. Standing at 33 feet tall and 115 feet long, this building sucks up over 99.96% of light, so it's as black as a black hole. South Korea is known for its awesome cafe culture, and their Starbucks outlets are no exception. Take Starbucks Wave Seoul, for example. It literally looks like it's floating on water. This cool spot is located in Seoul Wave Art Center, a place where you can enjoy art galleries and exhibitions. If you feel like you've seen this place before, it might be because K-pop stars have filmed music videos here. Back in 2011, Tesco, the British chain, set up virtual grocery stores in subway stations and bus stops in Seoul. It's like shopping in a real store, but on your phone. Commuters can scan and buy virtual items that will be delivered right to their door. Imagine walking into a subway station and seeing walls filled with pictures of food and other items you can buy. You can just scan special QR codes with your Home Plus app and boom, your groceries are on their way to your house. Order by 1 p.m. and you'll have your stuff that same day. You must have heard about the main star of Korean cuisine. I'm talking kimchi. The real question is, where's the element of surprise? This zesty, tangy, sweet, and sour dish has been around for over 1,500 years and comes in over 200 different varieties across the country. You'll never run out of new kimchi dishes to try. It can be served as a side dish, main dish, snack, appetizer, and if you're feeling daring, even a dessert. Ever heard of kimchi and banana? Yeah, that was actually a thing for a while. By the way, they say kimchi might be perfectly matched with cheese. Actually, kimchi can be matched with pretty much anything. They even produced kimchi-flavored chocolate in Korea. Seoul, the buzzing hub of South Korea, is jam-packed with around 10 million people. You'll find narrow alleyways and bustling streets at every turn, making personal space a rare commodity. If you're strolling through the city, expect to dodge pedestrians on the sidewalk, squeeze onto crowded subway trains, and feel a bit cramped compared to the wide-open spaces in the US. South Koreans are pros at sharing public areas, so don't be surprised if someone bumps into you without apologizing. It's just part of the hustle and bustle of city life, especially in busier areas. Just roll with the punches, literally, and enjoy the lively atmosphere of Seoul. In South Korea, taking off your shoes is kind of a big deal. Some locals might even get a little miffed if you make a fuss about it. Most traditional restaurants will require you to kick off your shoes before chowing down. Make sure to keep an eye out for a shoe shelf. It's also a good idea to wear easy-on, easy-off shoes like sandals. And please, for the love of all things holy, check your socks for holes. Nobody wants to see that. PDA is not really a thing in South Korea, even in hip cities like Seoul. You might catch a glimpse of couples holding hands while strolling the streets, but that's usually where the lovey-dovey stuff ends. Public displays of affection make South Koreans a bit uncomfortable. If you're a tourist, keep them at a minimum, even in party zones like Hongdae or Sinchon. Here's a tip for when you're dining out in South Korea. Don't wait around for the waitstaff to come to you. They won't. Instead, give a shout of "Yogi-yo" to get their attention. Yep, it means over here in Korean. And if you happen to come across a self-service bar, don't be shy about picking up your own water and utensils. It's all about DIY in some places, so get ready to take matters into your own hands. South Koreans are not afraid to dive deep with their questions. I mean, people you barely know may ask about your personal life or how much dough you bring in. So if someone starts getting all up in your personal biz or you feel like they're crossing the line, just remember, they're probably just curious and looking to connect. Don't sweat it. They're not being rude, just eager to get the convo going. In the US, it's totally cool to ask chefs to switch up ingredients for allergies or preferences. But in South Korea, it's a different story. Traditional Korean dishes are cooked up with specific ingredients for hours, so don't expect them to just switch out meat for veggies. It's not that chefs are being difficult, it's just that they put a lot of effort into making that perfect dish. So when you're chowing down in South Korea, make sure you pick something that matches your dietary needs. In South Korea, toilets are seriously next-level cool. They've got cozy, heated seats. They actually play a little jam for you while you do your business, and they've got these handy wands that spray warm water to give you a nice, refreshing clean. Some of them even have built-in dryers that blow warm air to get you all nice and dry afterwards. Just like any other country, South Korea has some issues. They're facing a spy camera problem. It's still a big issue, despite tough laws. It seems like spy cameras are way too easy to get a hold of, with students even using them to film teachers and classmates. Efforts to regulate them haven't been very successful yet, but people are pushing for stricter rules and penalties. Ever been to Italy and witnessed the lively debates that turn out to be just friendly conversations with a side of dramatic arm gestures? Well, get ready for a similar revelation in Korea. Korean conversations are full of deep voices, power-packed expressions, and the occasional shock factor. That lady at the restaurant who seems like she's about to yell at you? Don't worry, she's just super excited to show you the menu. It may seem a bit overwhelming at first, but trust me, Koreans are some of the friendliest folks you'll ever meet. Soak in the melodic flow of their language and let yourself be swept away by the welcoming vibes of this vibrant culture. Still, even though the Korean language is expressive, when you hop on a bus or train in South Korea, don't be surprised if it's quieter than a library. Locals are all about their headphones, jamming out to their favorite tunes instead of chit-chatting. It's a stark contrast to the West, where everyone's gabbing away or catching up with loved ones on the phone. So if you're cruising through Seoul and feel the urge to crank up the volume and start a lively convo, think again. Being loud on public transit is a dead giveaway that you're not from around these parts. While no one will hush you outright, expect some disapproving glares and whispers from the elderly squad if you take it too far. Better keep it cool and blend in like a true South Korean, right?
Hey there, quick question. What is the capital of Japan? If you said Tokyo, then you got it right. Tokyo is one of the most modern and colorful cities in Japan. But for over 1,000 years, Kyoto occupied that place. Yeah, I know, the names are similar, but while Tokyo is the futuristic center of Japan, Kyoto is one of the most traditional and historical cities in Japan. It's known as Japan's cultural capital. Let's play a game of Spot the Difference. Here are two photos. The first one is from Tokyo, and the second one is from Kyoto. Can you tell what is the main difference between both? Hold that thought for one more second. Here are two more pictures. The first one is from Asakusa, a neighborhood in Tokyo, while the second one is from Kyoto. What would you say is the main difference here? Well, you can probably guess where I'm headed. If you didn't figure it out, I'll spell it out for you. The main difference is in the colors. If you've ever had a chance to travel around a bit, you probably noticed how cities have certain color themes. Like Rome is terracotta, and Paris varies in tones of gray and sepia. Looking at these images, one can see that Tokyo is bright, electric, and looks even a bit chaotic. And Kyoto is monochromatic and gives the impression of being calmer and more peaceful. It's fascinating to see that what causes this distinction between both cities has to do with a certain landscape law. You see, in 2007, Kyoto passed a new law prohibiting colorful street signs. The law also wanted to standardize overall constructions to make the city look more homogeneous. Since Kyoto was Japan's capital city for such an extended period of time, it was built using traditional feng shui architecture and principles. That's why so many of the buildings have that traditional Asian shape to them, the one with the curvy ceiling, like you see in the Mulan movie. Sure, this style is very far from what modern architects are doing today. If you take a look at Tokyo, you'd see glass skyscrapers rather than these old buildings. But that's all part of a bigger plan, set in motion by something called the Miyako Landscape Guidelines. The municipality's main argument to pass the law was that Kyoto was losing its unique landscape due to Japan's modernization. If Kyoto were to follow in Japan's footsteps and build humongous skyscrapers, citizens would lose their view of the three mountains that surround the city. And let's face it, nobody would want that to happen. Plus, it's nice that you can go to different cities in Japan and notice that they are unique in their own way. If the landscape law was to be effective in all of Japan, we wouldn't get to see architectural marvels such as the Tokyo Sky Tree and the Asahi Flame Building. Now take a look at the Akihabara district in Tokyo. It is known as one of Japan's most modern neighborhoods. It's filled with top-notch technology at every corner. And yes, it's also filled with signs everywhere. If we compare it with Kyoto after the passing of the new law, the first thing that would have to go are the rooftop signs. Oh, and flashing and moving lights are also illegal there now. This Kyoto Starbucks also illustrates what I'm talking about. If you were strolling along the bucolic streets of Kyoto's countryside, searching for a place to get a cappuccino, you'd miss this coffee shop completely. I think we can agree that the traditional Starbucks logo was made to call attention, with that crowned siren-like creature supported by a very green background. In other places in Japan, it still looks like this. But in Kyoto, the brand went above and beyond to respect the new guidelines and produced this beautiful wooden logo and a little plaque that says this building has lattes. Yes, indeed. There are multiple examples like this. In Kyoto, the 7-Eleven doesn't have its traditional red, orange, and green stripes. Its logo was changed to black and white. You can think that's dull, but I think we can agree to disagree. It looks perfect when you look at its surroundings. Oh, and what about McDonald's, the world's most famous burger franchise? It kept its yellow logo, but took the red out of the background. In terms of the color palette allowed, the law uses the Munsell color system to determine which chroma levels are acceptable. Usually, the faded version of strong colors like red, black, green, and so on are accepted. Now, imagine if they adopted a Wes Anderson palette. It would look like a Toy City, that's for sure. At first, vendors and shopkeepers felt disturbed by the new law. They didn't understand why they had to change their branding for the sake of some aesthetic the city was trying to preserve. But with time, they not only came to terms with the new law, but could already see the benefits of it for their brand success. You see, this helped turn Kyoto into an even bigger tourist attraction. Tourists felt like they were traveling in time, sort of. Some tourists even like to dress up in traditional kimonos and walk around like geishas. The municipality also began an award system to compensate the shops and brands that had done their homework well. Of course, the camouflage Starbucks won an award back in 2018, as did Sagawa, a major delivery company in Japan, back in 2012. It's not only shops that needed to adjust to the new guidelines. Things such as vending machines and post offices also needed to be toned down. Again, the idea is to make the city more visually coherent, and they sure help. Now, what happens if you don't follow the rules? Well, the people who chose to ignore the landscape law can spend up to 1 year in jail or pay a huge fine. We can also compare the differences inside Kyoto itself. Around the city center, the landscape law is less strict, so you'll find taller buildings and even bigger and more colorful signs. But as you leave the center and move towards smaller cities in the countryside, the law is much more strict. It's especially strict around the UNESCO heritage sites. In case you're not aware, there are 17 heritage sites in Kyoto. Yep, that's a lot. But that's what makes Kyoto so unique. Now, welcome to the neighborhood of Pontulcho. This neighborhood is a good example of how the landscape law changed the city's mood over the years. Pontulcho is a cute alleyway in Kyoto that spans over several blocks. If you look at this Google Street image from 2009 and this one from 2023, you'll see clear differences. For starters, the huge sign at the entrance of the alleyway is gone. And so are the wires hanging from the tops of the shops. The pavement was redone and the big store signs disappeared. It's much cleaner. At night, the alleyway turned into the perfect spot for atmospheric dining, since its legislation decided to rule over the type of lighting allowed in the neighborhood. This is what it looks like at nighttime. Hey, you fancy grabbing some sushi? I can't help thinking that this landscape law contributed a lot to Japan's minimalist architecture. although images like these ones in Tokyo are far from the idea we have of this minimalist aesthetic. Kyoto falls right into place with it. How about we take a quick look inside one of these establishments? The Starbucks we mentioned earlier also invested in turning its interior design local. It's the first ever Starbucks where you can drink tea on a tatami floor. You can sit cross-legged, like many Japanese people do, and enjoy a delicious hot beverage. I must say I quite like the new Kyoto. How about you?
One of the most common and ancient Japanese beliefs, called Shinto beliefs, states that every aspect of nature has a soul. From mountains and rivers to rocks and leaves, each object has a living essence, and that essence is acknowledged and respected. Shinto shrines are places of worship where people come to pay their respects and ask for good fortune for themselves. There are over 100,000 shrines in all of Japan, and each one of them stands out. Let me take you on a tour. Watch out for a large gate called a torii. It indicates that you're entering a sacred ground. On the sides of the entrance, you can notice a dog or lion-like statues protecting the shrine and warding off evil spirits. Before walking in, you need to bow to pay your respects. Now, let's go inside. Make sure not to walk right through the middle of the gate. It's a part of the spirits that are being worshipped. Every other visitor should lean to the side of the gate. First thing there, you need to clean yourself. Right next to the entrance, there's a fountain. You should wash your hands and mouth with the water before going further. There are many natural elements inside the shrine: rocks, flowers, and trees, since a shrine is a tribute to nature. But look, there's also something unusual. Around a large tree, there's a rope with zigzag folded papers. This rope is called shimenawa, and it marks the boundary to something sacred. It's not just trees you can find shimenawa on, but also other sacred objects like, for example, on sacred stones or on torii gates. These pieces of paper right here are called omikuji. They contain randomly drawn predictions, some with good luck and some with bad luck. But bad luck doesn't mean your life is over. It means you should just focus on what you can do to make it better. You can also learn from what's written inside omikuji and move on. If you don't want to bring bad luck omikuji back home, you should tie the paper around a designated tree's branch to leave that bad fortune behind. You can even collect your visits to different shrines. Each one of them has a unique stamp. And, for a small fee, each visitor can get a stamp with beautiful Japanese calligraphy in their book of stamps. As you walk out of the shrine, don't forget to nod one or more times and lean to the side on your way out. These are some common rules and elements. But, of course, shrines vary depending on who or what they enshrine. Some of them enshrine emperors and their families, others poets and significant historical figures, both once living and not. Some shrines are big and famous, but there are also many small shrines that you can find along roadsides. For example, the Udo Shrine is dedicated to Japan's mythical first emperor, Jinmu. Why mythical? Well, because there's no real evidence of his actual existence, and there are many legends about him. The legend that connects Emperor Jinmu to this shrine tells that the cave where the shrine is located nourished him, so the shrine is a good place to visit for newlyweds. Zeniarai Benten Shrine is for those who want to attract money. It's believed that the amount of money you wash in the shrine spring will double. There's also a cute Yanagi-mori shrine that is dedicated to a widely loved raccoon called Otanuki-sama. He has shape-shifting abilities and is a symbol of good luck, and all around the shrine you can find cute statues of him. I could go on about shrines for a long time, but what else comes to mind when we think about Japan? Those gorgeous Japanese gardens. Turns out, the gardens are a Chinese influence that was brought to Japan by an inspired Japanese traveler in the 7th century. Unfortunately, none of the first gardens exist today. A boost to gardens was given a couple of centuries after that with tea ceremonies. Tea ceremonies are an important aspect of Japanese culture today, but they were brought there from China by a Japanese monk. A tea ceremony is a ritual of preparation and representation of matcha, a powdered green tea. With the boost in the popularity of tea ceremonies, some gardens were designed specifically for the ritual. So, the gardens got tea ceremony pavilions, with all those beautiful stepping stones and lanterns. A later modification of gardens are strolling gardens that were intended for walks and events of Japanese aristocracy. Wealthy people started to express themselves through their gardens, taking pride in them and displaying their success beyond their houses. All these things sparked the love and admiration for gardens, so no wonder they're of such high standard today. Japanese gardens still avoid anything artificial and are designed to express the beauty of nature. Maintenance of the gardens is taken seriously. There are various people taking care of it, and there are specific professions for it. For example, there are river washes, who are responsible for sweeping all gardens' waters. If you walk along several Japanese gardens, you can see that there are several key elements you can find in most of them: rocks, ponds, running water, bridges, and so on. All of those elements have a meaning, and they're all carefully placed where they're more likely to bring good fortune. There's even a Japanese manual with the rules for the placement of water. For example, the water should enter the garden from the east and flow out towards the west. This way, the flowing water will carry away all evil, and the owner of the garden will live a healthy and prosperous life. The central element of most Japanese gardens is a pond, and it may represent lakes or seas, both real and mythical. There are many small waterfalls and cascades, and they should face the moon and be designed so that the moon's reflection is captured in the water. Bridges represent immortality. They're made of stone or wood, and they cross streams, but also connect islands, another common feature that represents, well, real islands. Still, the islands vary in size and are filled with symbolism. For example, many are designed to resemble cranes and turtles, which are symbols of health and longevity. Rocks have been playing an important role in Japanese culture since ancient times. Remember that some stones are worshipped in shrines? In gardens, stones symbolize hills and mountains. The rocks are usually arranged in compositions of 2, 3, 5, or 7. The 3-rock composition is more common, and they represent heaven, earth, and humanity. Big rocks are used to build bridges and pathways. Small ones line streams and ponds. There are even so-called dry gardens that are made of stones entirely. The biggest stones symbolize islands and mountains. Sand and gravel symbolize water. There is, of course, no green garden without trees, flowers, and other vegetation. They're very thoughtfully arranged to imitate nature and highlight the best characteristics of every plant and let it thrive. Paths have been an important part of a garden ever since aristocracy started to stroll through them. Gladly, today anyone can afford to have a walk there once in a while. The paths are circular, allowing you to see all the beauty. As you stroll through the gardens, you can notice water basins. You're probably already a bit familiar with them. They're there for ritual cleansing and are especially important to use before tea ceremonies. Lanterns are often paired with water basins. Notice that they aren't made of metal. As you remember, Japanese gardens use natural materials, and so the lanterns are made of stone. They come in all shapes and sizes and are placed in carefully chosen locations to provide the most aesthetic, like on islands and next to significant buildings. There are, of course, many buildings in the garden from where you can observe it. After all, the gardens are built to please the eye in the first place, and they must be enjoyed from within.
Pikachu, I choose you! Feeling nostalgic yet? Well, this is shared by millions of fans of Pokemon worldwide. As for the anime genre in general, it's literally taken over the world. Surprisingly, it has many features that pertain to real life, giving insights into real Japanese culture. For example, food. If you've ever watched anime, you must have noticed how carefully animators depict the meals characters eat in most series. A bowl of ramen, the traditional Japanese noodles, is usually drawn in careful detail. And if you look at the photos of real-life ramen, you'll see how closely it is copied in the animation. Same goes for almost all other traditional Japanese dishes. When characters have a dinner table with all sorts of foodstuffs on it, You can take a Japanese cookbook and find all of them in there just by the look alone. One reason for that is the audience's expectations. People in Japan know what their food looks like, and they expect it to look the same way in anime. The other reason is the overall respect the Japanese have for food. It's much more than just the stuff you put into your mouth and chew. Food has a lot of traditions and national customs related to it, from the way it's prepared to the way it's eaten. That's why it's paid great attention to in anime as well. A lot of series take Japanese myths and legends as the foundation of their plots. You can learn a lot about what they believe in from anime. For example, many fantasy series revolve around yokai, spirits that can take different shapes and be both evil and benevolent. One of the most popular anime series of all time, Naruto, uses a lot of local traditions as well in its setting. Shinobi, the warriors and guardians of countries in the anime, used to really exist back in medieval times. They couldn't command forces of nature, of course, but they were indeed highly trained in martial arts and were often sent for operations that required stealth. The nine-tailed beast, Kurama, is a special fox that appears in anime as well. In Japanese mythology, fox spirits, or kitsune, are supernatural beings whose power and wisdom depend on the number of tails they have. The older and stronger they become, the more tails they grow, and nine-tailed foxes are considered the most powerful of all. No wonder Kurama was the strongest of the tailed beasts in the anime. By the way, Pokémon also referred to this myth with one of its creatures called Ninetails. It obviously had 9 tails and looked like a fox. This Pokémon appeared already in the first generation and was one of the first 100. Right now, there are more than 900 Pokémon overall, and the number is still growing. Gotta catch 'em all! In recent years, the isekai genre has immensely grown in popularity, both in Japan itself and around the world. The key feature is that a common person from our modern world gets either summoned or reborn in another world, usually a fantasy one. The protagonist then has wonderful and dangerous adventures, and often becomes one of the most prominent figures in the new world. The reason for such popularity is simple. It's an escape from dull reality. Before their transition to another world, the main character is usually shown as a perfectly ordinary human being. They can be a school kid, an office clerk, or even a jobless person. And after they get transferred, they often obtain some superpowers or magic abilities that give them the upper hand against monsters and other enemies. It's really a thing in common among people all over the planet, but Japan is perhaps especially longing for such escapes. It's customary for the Japanese to work a lot, and burnout is pretty common for them. Also, they often stay at work after hours without extra pay, which takes its toll on their well-being too. Office work can be tedious and hard, so no wonder they dream of being transported to a fantasy realm where they could be free and have magical adventures. Speaking of office work, you might picture animators and illustrators working in anime studios as some popular and wealthy guys, but that's far from true. In fact, most animators earn just enough to feed themselves, and many of them say the pay they get is insufficient for the work they do. Despite anime studios earning billions of dollars on their most successful titles, they often pay their employees just enough to survive. That happens because most animators come to the industry out of sheer desire to work on what they love. They don't go there to earn money, but to see their favorite manga series become live on screen. Also, the traditional approach to work in Japan is all about us, not me. They work for the collective good, not for themselves. So it's not customary for them to complain about their work conditions, as opposed to Western societies. One of the less obvious parallels between anime and the real world is the usual setting of almost any shonen series. It's a specific genre that's aimed at teenagers and young adults in anime. It normally involves adventures, dangers, a pretty clear line between good and evil, and vivid characters on both sides of the conflict. In such titles, the main character usually has to go through a lot of trouble before they come out victorious. The viewers see them training hard, battling against ever stronger foes and finding clever solutions to dire situations. The protagonist is almost never shown as someone especially strong. On the contrary, their enemies are all more powerful and cunning than they are, and it's through hard work and perseverance that the main character prevails. The not-so-hidden message of all these titles is that you can only achieve success by working hard and developing your skills. Nothing good comes without a struggle, and this rule can be easily applied to real life. It's also the rule many Japanese live by. The harder you work, the better you become. Apart from various adventurous titles, anime presents a vast array of casual, everyday life series. And from them, you can learn a lot about how the Japanese live. For example, if it's a title about school, it might be surprising to see all girls pictured walking around in skirts, even in winter. But in fact, that's totally true. Skirts are part of a school uniform in Japan for girls. It's not prohibited to wear warm stockings underneath them if it's cold, though. Skirts are also considered fashionable in Japan, so you would often see women walking around wearing them, even outside schools. And since it's not too cold in central and southern regions of Japan in winter, you can see skirts even in the coldest months. The sakura, or cherry trees, are literally everywhere in Japan. And just like it's shown in many anime series, the petals of these trees get carried all over the place in spring. There are even festivals held throughout the country dedicated to the blossoming of cherry trees. Such festivals are called hanami, which means viewing flowers. People come to parks and go to the countryside to enjoy the blooming of cherry trees. Households are also shown pretty true to life in anime too. Typical Japanese homes are small and minimalistic. They usually don't have much in terms of decoration, preferring practicality and comfort over visual pleasure. And yes, they sleep on the floor. Well, not exactly. They use futons, or mattresses that they put right on the floor. While beds are not really rare in Japan, futons are still very much a thing. By the way, it's sort of a custom to clean the futon in spring by taking it out to the balcony and beating it with a special stick. These mattresses are pretty heavy and hard to wash, so it's basically the only way to clean them after a long winter.
And now, for some risky restaurant business. Pufferfish is a Japanese delicacy and something akin to Russian roulette in the world of food. Its highly poisonous flesh contains tetrodotoxin, which is 1,200 times more toxic than cyanide. Yum! Normally, people can't stay alive if they eat this fish, yet Japanese chefs are trained to remove the poisonous parts for the $200 delicacy named fugu. That's pricey. It's almost completely banned in the US. There are only a few authorized places that sell it. Can I say people are dying to get it? I can't? Okay, so I won't. Another food banned in the US is kazumarzu, which is rotten cheese in Italian. If you ever feel like trying it, head to Sardinia, Italy. Basically, it's some sheep milk cheese. Special flies are allowed to leave eggs in it that are left in the cheese for 40 days. This delicacy has some live maggots that take care of decomposing the cheese, giving it that distinctive texture and spicy flavor. It's banned in the US for sanitary reasons. You think? Unlike soft and creamy kazumarzu, Kirpi is known to be the world's hardest cheese. Just like any regular cheese, it's made from milk. Its main difference is that it stays fresh for up to 20 years. The milk is quite special too. The cows, which are actually a cross between cows and yaks, eat a variety of mountain herbs. Cheese made from this savory milk has unique flavor. National Jamaican fruit ackee has a unique taste. It's quite mild, its texture is buttery and creamy, and it tastes just like scrambled eggs. It's safe to eat ackee only as long as it's fully ripe. Beware though, the only edible part is the white creamy flesh itself. Toxic pink flesh and black seeds are a total One of the traditional Jamaican dishes with this fruit is called ackee and saltfish. Well, at least it's codfish, not pufferfish. Another thing that should be 100% ripe in order to be safe is elderberry. These berries are quite famous though. You can find them in pies, syrups, teas, jams, you name it. Process these berries properly though, since they contain cyanide. Fully ripe and cooked berries aren't dangerous. That's good to know. Actually, almost all the pits and stones contain cyanide. Your favorite cherries have it too. The amount is small and isn't likely to cause any harm, but still, try not to swallow them. Same with peaches, plums, and apricots. Just don't chew on them for too long. Now, if you're a fan of seafood, you probably want to try some sanakchi. It's some seasoned baby octopus tentacles. Well, the problem is that these are still alive. Those who have never tried this Korean dish claim the tentacles can still move on the plate and can stick to the inner part of your mouth since the suction function is maintained. Suction function. Meanwhile, another fun food fact. Greenland sharks don't have any urinary tract, and all the waste they produced is basically filtered through flesh and skin, so their flesh is toxic. Sounds like a good reason not to eat them, but not in Iceland. Nope. Hakaro, which is processed shark meat, is first hung to dry for 3 to 5 months. In the end, you get something like ammonia-smelling fermented fish with a jelly texture that reminds of wet bread. Cassava is a poisonous tropical root of 2 types. The sweet variation does contain some cyanide, but it's enough to cook it to reduce the toxic content to a safe level. To get rid of all the toxins in bitter cassava, it's necessary to grate the root, then soak it, and finally cook properly to make it edible. This root is very starchy and its flavor is really subtle. Cassava can be used just like potatoes, mashed, boiled, or fried. And I'd like a side of cassava, please, and hold the cyanide. Rhubarb doesn't seem to fit in this list of notorious dishes, but it actually has its downsides. Its leaves are super toxic, containing oxalic acid, and should never ever be used for cooking, baking, or whatever you want to do. If you ever try to eat one, the least serious consequences are a burning sensation all over the mouth, nausea, and breathing problems. If you live in the States and you're under 47, chances are you've never tried haggis, since it was banned almost a half a century ago. This Scottish pudding is made of a full range of sheep's inner parts. We'll spare you the details. Plus some oatmeal, a lot of minced onions, suet, just don't ask, and some broth. It's quite crumbly and coarse, and it's also spicy. It's usually served with mashed potatoes or mashed turnip on the side. Well, at least it's not mashed cassava. Well, by the way, potatoes aren't that harmless either. It all depends on whether they're ripe or not. So-called green potatoes are full of toxins, and potato sprouts contain solanine, which is quite toxic. Same with green almonds and cashews that are full of cyanide if not ripe enough. Luckily, the nuts we get at the supermarkets are well processed, which means they're completely safe. Whew. There's one bistro in Bangkok where they've been cooking the same beef and noodle soup for 45 years. Literally, the same. It's been simmering for over 4 decades. The broth has never been thrown away. It's always kept overnight for the next day's soup. They never wash the pan to keep the unique flavor. There's a massive grease rim around that huge pan, formed as a result of 45 years non-stop simmering spillovers. Please, be my guest. Chinese century eggs aren't white and yellow. They're black and gray when you peel them, and the outside color is brownish-green. To cook this savory Chinese delicacy, all you need is some tea, quick lime, salt, wood ashes, and some water to mix it all together. Dip the raw eggs in this paste and roll them in rice husks so they won't stick to each other. Let it sit for 100 years. Nah, just kidding. 10 days are enough when it's hot. For colder weather, it may take up to 30 days. Hey, don't go, it gets better. Bird droppings seem no delicacy, but in Greenland, there's a local dish actually based on them. It's called urumit, says here, and is made of ptarmigan droppings. They collect them in winter, and when they're dry, and cook them together with some rancid sea oil and some sea meat. The droppings, cooked this way, taste somewhat like gorgonzola. Check please. Surprisingly, harmless tuna can be pretty dangerous. Big fish live a long life in the ocean. The problem is, the mercury level in oceans has significantly risen over the last several decades, and the fish absorb it into their flesh. If you eat a lot of tuna or any other big ocean fish, you risk mercury toxicity. It's not that you should stop eating it, just monitor the weekly consumption. As for tuna, their eyeballs are quite a popular delicacy in China and Japan. Tuna eyeballs need to be boiled before eating, thank goodness, and some seasoning is required too. If you nail it, you'll have a delicacy that tastes like squid and stares back at you. Hey, on the good side, it costs less than $1. Red kidney beans are actually somewhat poisonous too. You might have never noticed or even known that, but it's because we eat all of them well processed. Cooked and baked beans expose no danger, while the raw kidney beans have a toxic protein in them. In order to get rid of it, you gotta first soak them well, preferably overnight, and change the water before boiling. When they're soft, they're nothing but a great source of non-toxic proteins and other nutrients. In Cambodia, you can try a crunchy, crispy snack that tastes a bit like crab. It's deep-fried and seasoned. The main ingredient is a tarantula. Now, this doesn't quite sound like a lunch. Now, this soup, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, is definitely scrumptious. The taste is sharp yet delicate, and it tastes just like shrimps. Well, this traditional Laotian dish sounds really cool until you realize it's made of ant eggs. To give it a bit of sourness, they also tend to add a few tiny ants. In Mexico, you don't throw away corn kernels turned black because they're rotten. You keep them as a culinary specialty called, this name. Fungus all over the kernel gives it that earthy, woody smell. Getting hungry? Some dishes just need the decoration, especially cakes and pies. In England, there's a pie called stargazing. The name speaks for itself. The sardines, accompanied by potatoes and eggs, peek out of the pie crust and stare at the skies. Sometimes these are the tails that point at the skies, though. Tea mushroom is another weird thing they drink in East Europe together with sour milk-based drinks. It's basically some fermented black or green tea. It's made by adding a whole culture of bacteria — they're not consumed, they just ferment the drink — to sweeten tea, where sugar acts like yeast. Add juice, spice, or whatever you want to taste. Well, I've had about enough of this. Think I'm gonna barf. Bye for now. Most people know that pyramids were built as grand tombs for the pharaohs, designed to ensure they had a smooth journey to the afterlife. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, was constructed for the pharaoh Khufu. But what most people don't know is that this whole pyramid building trend started right here, with the step pyramid of Djoser, about 4,700 years ago. This massive structure was built for Pharaoh Djoser, a ruler from Egypt's 3rd dynasty. It rises 7 layers high above the ground and stands about 200 feet tall. We think of it today as a phenomenal architectural project, but for ancient Egyptians, the step pyramid of Djoser turned out to be more like a massive experiment, a trial run, if you will, to perfect their building skills before they moved on to even more ambitious pyramids. Reaching new heights is super exciting, but the real mystery is what is going on below the ground. In this pyramid's underground labyrinth, there is a network of tunnels stretching about 3.5 miles long, and some researchers believe these tunnels might have been part of a sophisticated water system that could completely change what we think about pyramid construction. Let's talk about this massive complex located in Saqqara. Surrounding the pyramid, there's what's known as a dry moat, a continuous trench that is up to 164 feet wide and almost 2 miles long. It forms a sort of rectangular shape around the pyramid. This trench has an average depth of about 65 feet. Now, if you were to add up all the earth and rock they dug out to create this moat, it would be about 10 times the volume of the step pyramid itself. For the longest time, people just assumed this trench was nothing more than a huge quarry, a place where they dug up stone and clay to build the step pyramid. Makes sense, right? But when you take a closer look, it doesn't add up. The trench is too narrow and deep to be practical for mining, and its layout doesn't match anything we know about ancient Egyptian quarrying methods. Plus, some sections of the trench are actually covered with a rocky ceiling, which would have made it nearly impossible to use as a quarry. Another theory suggests that the dry moat had some kind of spiritual significance. Maybe it was a sacred place, where souls of nobles gathered to serve the late king in the afterlife. There are even niches in the walls that work as a hint at this spiritual function. But most researchers believe that this purpose likely developed much later, long after the complex was built for Djoser. So, what was the moat really designed for? In 2020, a researcher came up with a pretty intriguing idea. It is possible that this trench was actually designed to collect and manage water, especially after heavy rainfalls. Now, that makes sense when you consider the location. The moat sits in an area that could easily have been flooded by runoff water from nearby plains. This could also explain why the trench wasn't used for new graves until much later when the climate became drier and less prone to flooding. The story becomes even more intriguing, as this trench appears to be part of a larger, more complex hydraulic system within the Djoser complex. It is like the trench has several compartments, carefully carved out of the rock and connected by tunnels. These compartments likely served as a part of a water treatment system, where water would flow from one compartment to the next, getting cleaner as it moved along. Now, here is where things start to tie into the pyramid itself. The Djoser complex has a series of underground shafts, and some researchers think that water from the moat's deep trench might have been used to power a hydraulic lift system, and this giant water-powered elevator could have been used to raise the heavy stones needed to build the pyramid. It worked like a volcano, but instead of lava, water did the heavy lifting. Imagine a big deep hole in the ground at the center of the pyramid site. Inside this hole, there was a huge wooden platform, kind of like a giant raft that could move up and down. When the workers wanted to lift a heavy stone, they would fill the hole with water. As the water rose, the wooden platform started to float up, carrying the stone with it, almost like a giant water-powered elevator. When the stone reached the right height, the workers slid it off the platform and onto the pyramid. The idea is that water from the deep trench, after being cleaned and filtered, would flow into these shafts. A massive float, possibly made of wood, would then rise as the water filled the shaft, lifting the stones up to where they were needed for construction. Once the stone was in place, they'd let the water out, lowering the platform back down to the bottom, ready to lift the next stone. This fancy hydraulic lift system could have been a game changer, making the whole building process a lot faster and more efficient without using a lot of workforce. It is like the ancient Egyptians were already embracing the whole idea of work smarter, not harder. But of course, not everyone is on board with this theory. Some experts argue that the area where the step pyramid of Djoser was built couldn't have held enough water from occasional rains to maintain such a fancy hydraulic system. The main theory suggests that, in the past, there might have been some kind of lake nearby that would have filled up after a period of rain, and this lake could have supplied water to the complex's hydraulic system. But there is no mention of such a lake in any ancient Egyptian writings, so it might be more of a what-if situation than a reality. And then there's the issue of the hard work itself. Remember when I said this method could have allowed the ancient builders to raise stones with far less effort? Well, that might not be entirely true. According to some experts, just building this hydraulic device would have required a lot more heavy work than simply moving the stone blocks using good old-fashioned manpower. And let's not forget, the step pyramid of Djoser is like a baby pyramid compared to those that came later. The stones used for Djoser's pyramid weighed, on average, about 660 pounds each, which is nothing compared to the more than 2.5-ton blocks used later for the pyramid of Chephren. If this cool water lift theory gets completely ruled out, we still need to explain how this pyramid was built in the first place. To answer that, we need to rewind a bit and talk about the original plans. See, before Djoser's tomb became a pyramid, the idea was to construct a simple mastaba. This type of tomb was pretty common in earlier periods, a flat-roofed, rectangular structure with sloping sides. But after the original mastaba was finished, they decided to expand it a bit by adding more layers on top. And then they added even more layers, until the construction reached 6 distinctive steps, each one smaller than the previous. And they probably did all this by raising those heavy stones using ramps, not a water-powered elevator. There is still so much we don't know about the step pyramid of Djoser. More research is definitely needed to fully understand how this system worked, or if it even existed at all. But the idea of using water to help build the pyramid adds a whole new layer to our understanding of ancient Egyptian engineering. It's a powerful reminder of just how clever and resourceful those builders were, using the natural landscape and the power of water to create one of the most iconic monuments in history. I hope you're hungry. In Taiwan, for $1, you can get a bowl of delicious oyster noodle soup. This country has world-famous night markets where you can find plenty of street food to fit any budget. When you're traveling, you don't want to be weighed down with a bunch of heavy clothes. You probably won't even wear half of them. Save some luggage space and find a good laundry service. You can wash around 1 pound of clothes for $1 in Malaysia. Oh, and I almost forgot, you can get some nice local breakfast for the same price too. If you find yourself in the Caribbean and you want to buy some pirate corn on the cob, it's a buccaneer. Hey, that joke cost me $1. Do you think it's possible to buy 10 eggs for the price of $1? You can in Malaysia. Wonder why they sell eggs in groups of 10. Which $1 option would you choose in Vietnam? 2 nice cups of local coffee, 5 local newspapers, 1 year of insurance for your motorbike, a good hair wash, or 4 delicious rolls. Now we're talking. If you're in Indonesia on a budget, you can always get a full meal of chicken porridge, meatballs, and chicken noodles. And if you need some help back to your hotel, a motorbike taxi will cost you around $1 as long as it's a short enough ride. In Bangkok, Thailand, there's a long-tail boat that takes you from one side of a wide river to the other. And for $1, you can ride on it a whole 6 times, back and forth, back and forth. Are your feet swollen from the flight? Give yourself a 30-minute foot massage in the Philippines, something you can actually get for $1 over there. Hello there, Sri Lanka. While there, you can buy a 5-hour bus or train ride across the island for about $1. If you don't feel like traveling all over, search for some local places to try their traditional coconut pancakes for the same price. Meanwhile, in Armenia, you can choose between a huge pack of flour, a big sack of potatoes, or 3 loaves of bread. What would you even do with all that stuff? Hey, how about turkey? Not the Thanksgiving one. Only got a few coins in your pocket? There's a nice cup of Turkish tea waiting for you. It's actually the most popular hot drink in the country. Or if you want to eat something delicious, you can have a piece of the sweet pastry baklava. Okay, $1 won't get you the biggest piece ever, but it's still worth it. A hot dog for $1? That's not a trap. It's the real price you can actually find on the streets of Macedonia. Meanwhile, in Croatia, you can get a ticket for public transportation, local newspapers, or a scoop of excellent ice cream. Oh yeah, and a cup of cappuccino at a local coffee shop too. Speaking of a good coffee, yes, Italy! Need a slap-in-the-face espresso after your all-night party session? No problem. You'll have to search around a bit for some less touristy places to get it for $1, but it's doable. If you're in Rome, looking for something to see, you'll definitely want to snap a couple of pics at the Colosseum. It's actually free, but there are local actors dressed up in gladiator uniforms, and it's customary to tip them at least $1. Not your thing? Pick up 2 bottles of water for the same price. But wait, we're still not done with Italy. Why not go completely wild and spend another $1, this time to buy a house? Yeah, you heard me right. Okay, to be precise, these houses cost €1, so that's going to be around $1.20. But still, you could try to bargain with them. And no, it's not that real estate in Italy that's insanely priced. There's a story behind it. Italy's trying to attract new residents back to their tiny towns to increase the population. People have been moving out of these areas, headed for the cities to look for work. These towns just want to bring some life back onto their streets. Moving to the UK now. You can definitely find something for $1. The question is, how do you handle it? How about a $1 pickled egg? Yup, an egg boiled and then pickled in vinegar. It's a classic over there, usually served as a side dish for fish. When you're in London, you can visit most museums for $1. Okay, you got me. Museums there are mostly free. So, a whole bunch of pickled eggs, anyone? Now, you can't visit France without tasting an authentic baguette. But the fact that you can get it for $1 makes it even better. Baguette is the French word for stick, and it's one of the most famous French products. There was a law passed in 1920 that banned bakers from starting work before 4 a.m. or from working past 10 p.m. The bakers had to come up with a fast-baking bread to feed to everyone. And ta-da! That's when the baguette showed up. Iceland is a beautiful country, but also one of the most expensive in the world. There aren't many things you can buy for $1 in Iceland, but milk is the exception. How about a good old bag of chips? This afternoon snack cost about $1 in Ireland. Smoky bacon flavor for me. In Luxembourg, you can get a 1.5-liter bottle of water for this amount. Yeah, not a lot going on over there, but still an interesting country. It's the only Grand Duchy in the world, whatever that means. There's not a lot you can get for $1 in Belgium either, but okay, chewing gum might come in handy. In Finland, you can get access to a public toilet. But if you ask nicely, the coffee shop down the road might help you save $1 on that. Poland has a traditional dessert that looks like a donut, and 2 pieces cost $1. The dough is rich, fluffy, filled with jam, and covered in powdered sugar. Traditionally, they eat it on Fat Thursday. In the States, people went crazy over it too, but we eat it on Fat Tuesday. Tuesday, Thursday, potato. I'm up for a couple of these any day of the week. If you're visiting Switzerland, you're going to need a bit more than $1. But okay, you can go to a deli and taste a really tiny piece of Swiss cheese, just to see what you've been missing. They might not even charge you. Another thing you can get for $1 is, maybe 1 apple. Maybe. Pincho. It's a traditional Spanish snack, usually just bread with toppings like vegetables, pickles, or meat. They sell it everywhere, but the good local places that sell it for $1 are usually hidden in the non-touristy areas. All that for just $1? Not bad. In Germany, find a pretzel, eat it. No, it's not that kind of pretzel. It's a freshly baked bready thing that's all kinds of delicious. Or you can buy 400 cotton swabs if you're not hungry. It's a nice sunny day in Sweden. You're taking a walk, enjoying your day, and you're in the mood for something refreshing. For $1, of course. Ooh, an ice cream popsicle. Okay, you totally got me. I'm in. Going to Brazil? Great. $1 there can get you a glass of fresh orange juice. Or even better, if you don't feel like walking around with your backpack all day, get to the nearest bus station. They have lockers there, so you can ditch your stuff and head straight for the beach. Time for Colombia. In the capital, Bogota, you can get coffee with 2 biscuits or an arepa, a traditional corn delicacy that comes in different flavors. Then, more coffee. If you're wandering around New York City, you might just be able to find a tasty slice of pizza for that price. It just might take a while. Are your car or bike tires flat? Well, you know the price for using the air pump. Need some string, some buttons, a few balloons, or something equally random? Head to the 99-cent store. And in Canada, you can buy lettuce. In Costa Rica, you can get a whole watermelon, papaya, or pineapple. And in Tanzania, a nice potato omelet.
Meet Hula Male, also known as the City of Hope. This nickname makes total sense, since this artificial island is part of the Maldives' big plan to avoid being completely submerged in the near future. Hula Male was created by placing sand from the seafloor onto a submerged coral platform, and it worked. This city sits about 6 feet above sea level, which means it's twice as high as the Maldives' capital, Male. While more and more people are moving there to live, the island was also designed to serve as a temporary evacuation site during dangerous storms and typhoons. Seychelles is another gem in the Indian Ocean that's at risk of disappearing. Unfortunately, coastal flooding is becoming a common issue there, especially during spring tides and heavy rainfall. The problem is that their main island, Mahé, hosts about 90% of the country's population. Along the coast, it's only about 6 feet above sea level. Fiji is the third tropical paradise on our list, and it's also a top pick for travelers. But this nation is in a tough spot, since it's located right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where huge storms can really turn things into chaos. Take Cyclone Winston. It hit Fiji back in 2016 and ended up costing them over $1 billion in damage. So one thing they're doing to protect themselves is planting mangroves along the coast and preserving the ones that already exist. These trees are awesome since they help reduce wind speed during cyclone emergencies and also combat erosion by trapping sediments. Egypt might be in trouble too. I mean, it's not like the whole country is going to be underwater and we'll only see the tips of the pyramids in a few years. But things could really change for them as coastal cities are facing a serious risk. Take Alexandria, for instance. 45% of its population already lives below sea level. If the city is flooded, not only will everyone have to move, but Egypt in general will suffer a major impact on its fish production. In Europe, one of the most at-risk populations is in the Netherlands, where about half the people live in areas below sea level. In the future, planning a romantic gesture with tulips for your girlfriend could become an impossible mission. The Netherlands is responsible for 2/3 of the world's tulip production. So if fields are taken over by saltwater, it's game over for the blooms. But the good news is that the Dutch have centuries of experience dealing with water, so knowing how to work with storm barriers and seawalls can prevent them from a doomsday scenario. The risks of rising sea levels probably aren't higher anywhere else than here in Tuvalu. This island chain, located halfway between Australia and Hawaii, could be the first state to become uninhabitable. Its stunning land is only about 9 feet above sea level. And just by looking at it on the map, you can see how narrow it is. In fact, the narrowest part in Fongafale is only about 65 feet wide. So even before higher tides become a real problem, the country's limited farmland could be flooded with saltwater. The next country on our list is the Philippines. This archipelago in Southeast Asia boasts some of the most stunning scenery, but it faces the risk of flooding for 2 reasons. First, due to rising sea levels, and second, because of crazy, unpredictable weather. Since 1990, events like cyclones, earthquakes, and tsunamis have cost the country over $20 billion. Have you ever heard of Vanuatu? This chain of islands, spread out between Australia and Fiji, could be flooded soon. Vanuatu was one of the first Pacific nations to relocate an entire community to a safer spot. Back in 2005, residents living in risky coastal areas of the northern island of Tegua moved to higher ground. Next up, the Marshall Islands, a country located in the Central Pacific. Studies show that 40% of the buildings in the capital city, Majuro, could end up underwater in the future. But this country isn't throwing in the towel just yet. They've got a game plan. They are fortifying the infrastructures of their low-lying airport, relocating key buildings to higher ground, and putting up seawalls on rural islands. Heading south, we've got Nauru. This is actually one of the smallest countries in the world, covering just 8.1 square miles. Today, it's home to 10,000 people, but it's on the brink of becoming uninhabitable. Water levels are rising about 3 times faster there than the global average. The Buada Lagoon sparks special concern since it's the only surface freshwater resource, and it's located only 16 feet above sea level. Our next stop in the Pacific Ocean is the Republic of Palau. Rising sea levels are no joke for them either. but protecting their crops, especially taro, is a priority at this moment. About halfway between Hawaii and New Zealand lies Samoa, and this country is dealing with a unique situation. Not only is the volume of water increasing there, but their land is also sinking. You see, a couple of strong earthquakes and tsunamis hit Samoa back in 2009. So as the crust bounces back to its original position, the overall land surface is actually going down. Because of this, their housing and main infrastructure could take a serious hit, especially since all their airports are along the coast. Let's head to Kiribati. This Pacific nation has a big problem with frequent flooding because most of its people and infrastructure are near the coast. Apart from the volcanic island of Banaba, none of Kiribati's land is more than 6.5 feet above the ocean. To tackle this situation and keep their population safe, they had this big idea of making a massive floating platform, kind of like the ones oil companies have. But the problem is that it would cost them a fortune, as the project is estimated to be around $2 billion. If visiting Vietnam is on your bucket list, you better hurry up. The top 10 things to do there mostly involve cruising to jaw-dropping spots like down to Ha Long Bay, also known as the Descending Dragons Bay. But by 2050, the surrounding land over there might be underwater. Another huge problem Vietnam is facing is that the main rice fields are getting salty. And if you're into Vietnamese food, you know how important rice is for them. Right now, they're especially concerned about the Mekong Delta region being vulnerable. After all, this is a highly fertile area responsible for most of Vietnam's agricultural output, with over 50% of it being, rice. This nation is really putting in the effort to adjust to this new reality. They're flushing the rice fields in the Mekong Delta with fresh water to get rid of the saltiness. Our next stop is in the Caribbean Sea. Grenada is an island country, but you may know it as the Island of Spice, since its tropical climate is just perfect for cultivating things like nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, and ginger. Unfortunately, Grenada and its incredible fertile soil also face an uncertain future of being submerged. Let's talk about the last country on our list, the Solomon Islands. 5 islands in this archipelago have already vanished beneath the waves, and 6 others are submerged by 20%. They include the Nusa Evili Island, which was once a hotspot to go to for a picnic in the early 2000s. Even though the situation is complicated, it's important to note that more than 300 of the islands there are inhabited. One thing about the Solomon Islands is that it seems like they're always in some kind of recovery mode, since the country often gets hit by tropical cyclones and flash floods. Their population is already working hard to save their homes from the rising seas by building stone walls along the coast, planting mangroves, and constructing houses in higher areas.
Hi there, traveler. Are you ready for 80 days around the world? Can't take that much time off? Well, how about 8 minutes around the world? But this is no ordinary tour. You're about to hear some weird and extraordinary stuff about different countries. So, when you visit them for real, you can brag about your cultural knowledge to your friends and even pretend to be a local. Let's kick off, pun intended since its nickname is the Boot, with Italy, shall we? Italian police sure know how to be on duty in style. Not so many years ago, a Lamborghini was added to the police vehicle fleet in Italy. It probably helps them catch criminals fast. Or maybe the lawbreakers they're after get so impressed by how glamorous the police car is that they stop to take a look at it for a second, and that's how the officers easily catch them. Now, since we're already in Europe, we might as well head to Germany. The speed limit is nothing but a suggestion on some parts of the German highways, called the Autobahn. And it's actually up to drivers to choose whether to follow them or not. So that means they can drive as fast as they want or as fast as their car allows. You might be aware that Slovakia is famous for its many castles and chateaus, but I bet you didn't know this one strange holiday tradition they do there. A live carp is usually kept in the bathroom before preparing it for holiday dinner, Since carps are bottom feeders, people let the one they have swim in their bathtubs for a few days to clean its track. That also means no long baths with luxury salts and flower leaves. After the dinner is served, they keep a scale from the fish in their wallet because they believe it attracts money. And apparently the same goes for Poland too. There's something fishy going on. Let's head to Finland now. I have not one but two interesting facts about there. From 1999 to 2010, Finland held the World Sauna Competition, in which the person who could sit in the sauna the longest would win, or beg. These were so famous that people from all over the world would come to Finland to compete in this extreme activity. When you think about the fact that saunas were invented by the Finns over 2,000 years ago as a form of a bath, it makes sense that something like this became a thing. Funny thing is, the second bizarre Finland fact I have for you is also about a form of competition. See, there's this contest that originated in Finland called Jukonkanto, in which men participate in running a specific distance while carrying their wives. It even has a category in the Guinness World Records. The goal of this race for the contestants is to carry their partners through special obstacle tracks in the fastest time. Now, in case you're wondering, the original course consisted of rough, rocky terrains with fences and brooks back then, but it has been altered since to suit modern conditions. The International Wife Carrying Competition Rules Committee, yes, that's a real thing, set the rules for the track to have 2 dry obstacles and a water obstacle about 1 meter deep. The Wife Carrying World Championships have been held annually in Finland since 1992, and the winner gets their partner's weight in drinks, not gold. Talk about competitive spirit, huh? Meanwhile, Sweden, Finland's neighbor, is no slouch when it comes to having some bizarre facts of its own. If you're one of those people who is not a fan of sushi, you sure are not going to like this one. In Sweden, rotten fish is an actual food item called surströmming. Okay, to be fair, it's not really rotten. It's just lightly salted and fermented. However, it does smell rotten indeed. This version of Baltic sea herring has been a staple of Swedish cuisine since the 16th century. The fermentation process of the fish takes at least 6 months and gives the dish a somewhat acidic taste and a characteristic strong smell. So much so that it's now known as one of the world's smelliest foods. Now, might as well visit Harry Potter's motherland before we leave Europe. Now, I'm not going to say people in the UK go to school on flying brooms or anything, even though we probably all wish that was possible. But trust me, this one is as unusual as that. People in the UK have a competition to roll after a giant cheese wheel. Yup, you heard that right. The event is called the Cooper's Hill Cheese Rolling and Wake and is held every year near Gloucester in England. A round of double Gloucester cheese is sent rolling down a 200-yard hill, and participants race down after it. The competition was traditionally held by and for the people who live in the local village of Brochures, but now they accept people from all over the world to take part in it. So write your name down for next year, and you might just win the prize, which is, what do you think, bad-smelling fish? No, it's cheese, of course. We're going to travel slightly east now and visit Turkey. If you're one of those people who calls themselves a gourmet, then this sure is going to interest you. There's a dessert in Turkey that contains chicken meat. It's a traditional dessert that's a Turkish version of a milk pudding made with shredded chicken breast. It used to be a delicacy served to Ottoman sultans in the Topkapi Palace, but it can now be found in almost every restaurant and is a very beloved dish. Now, we can't have a work tour without visiting Asia. Our first destination there is Japan. Now, if you ever have to drive a car in Japan, this sure is going to help you not get confused. Traffic lights there have a blue go light instead of the standard green. It has nothing to do with Japan's color of choice or anything, but it's all due to the Japanese language and the fact that there used to be one word to describe both blue and green. Although the International Convention on Traffic Light Colors dictates the regular red, yellow, and green, Japan is not among the countries which signed it. Yet again, in 1973, Japanese officials declared that the traffic lights should be the bluest shade of green possible to avoid any further confusion. Now it's time to head to Singapore. When you're walking down the streets of Singapore, don't be surprised to see bamboo poles sticking out of the apartment windows. Bamboo is a widely available material there, and it has a higher weight-to-strength ratio than steel. That's why people use them to dry their laundry there, and they say it actually helps clothes to dry faster. Oh, one more thing. Did you know that in Singapore, selling chewing gum has been illegal since 1992? But don't get me wrong, chewing gum is not banned. Only importing and selling it is banned. So that's why you'll rarely see someone chewing gum on the street. However, there's an exception to this. It is still allowed to sell therapeutic and dental gums, and these can only be bought from a doctor or a pharmacist. Now, when you think about fun activities, nothing beats a good old-fashioned water fight, right? Well, every April during Songkran, the Thai New Year's national holiday, Thailand holds a water festival. Major streets are closed to traffic and are used as arenas for water fights. People of all ages participate in the tradition and consider this a part of ritual cleansing during the celebration period. Meanwhile, New Zealand, the real-life Middle-earth, is our next destination. What do you think? This is not what you get when a chimp sits down at a keyboard. This is an actual word, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce because my tongue and teeth would fall out just attempting it. But it's the name of a real place in New Zealand, and it's actually known as the longest place name in the world with all of its 85 characters. The name is of Maori origin, and it's shortened to Taumata to make things easy for everyone, especially the tourists. And in case you're wondering what the word means, it's this. The summit where Tamatea, the man with the big knees, the slider, climber of mountains, the land swallower who traveled about, played his flute to his loved one. Okay, things must have been pretty slow back then, when tooting a flute gets a town named after you. But who am I to judge?
Let me continue my world tour, and now we're heading straight to Europe. Let's start our journey in Greece, a place with thousands of years of history. Even in modern days, there are still ancient ruins there that are being carefully preserved, and it's an interesting ride. The airport of Athens has a built-in museum with ancient artifacts. And here's how ancient and modern coexist there. Here's the view of the Acropolis from the street. A Spartan roaming the streets of Greece. A Redditor shared a photo of a modern building built right over the ancient ruins. The visitors can see the ruins through the glass. Greece is also very well known for its cats roaming the streets everywhere. This Redditor spotted a cat guarding the National Bank of Greece. These days, everyone is trying to reduce the usage of plastic. Some use paper straws and some go with glass straws. But this cafe in Greece offered to use macaroni as straws. I'm not sure if it's stupid or genius. Another user went to a restaurant in North Macedonia and got baffled when they served slices of pizza on waffles. Double win, a snack and no waste. In Romania, vending machines seem to be a thing. This one, for example, is a machine with ham. And here's a better one, a vending machine selling cartons of eggs. Scrambled eggs, probably. Europe is a place where old neighbors are modern, and this combination is mesmerizing. I'll show you. This Redditor shared a photo of a modern basketball court squeezed between 700-year-old walls in Croatia. And here's a photo from inside a grocery store. Look at these old columns. Modern problems require modern solutions. These traffic lights light up the ground so that people who store their phones could notice when the light changes. Italy is a work of art with thousands of years of history. I have quite a bunch of stuff for you from there. Some ruins date back thousands of years, and a lot of that gets preserved. A Redditor shared a photo of a lobby of a hotel that has a glass floor so that the ruins were visible. And these are the railing in an Airbnb. Even street signs are a work of art in Italy. Look at this one. Another Redditor shared even more designs. This Redditor showed a photo of a supermarket that is located in an old theater in Venice. Another user added one more photo of that supermarket. Since we're talking about supermarkets, apparently, pets are allowed there. There are even special carts to carry them. Cities are centuries old, and there are quite a few narrow streets, so post vehicles have to adjust to fit them. Here's one of them. Some cities have canals or are located on islands, so boats are a thing. This is a UPS boat at Murano Island. Europe is packed with countries. The city of Basel in Switzerland is located right on the border with France and Germany, so the airport has 3 exits. You can walk out of it to France, Germany, or Switzerland. Let's walk out in Germany. Look, there's a traffic light with a girl walking a camel. The reasons are a mystery to me because camels aren't really a German thing, but it's cute. Here's another unique streetlight featuring Karl Marx, a famous German philosopher. Back to baffling vending machines. In Germany, you can find vending machines with sausages. Hamburg is Germany's major port city. There's a river that connects it to the North Sea. No wonder there's a drive-through McDonald's for a boat. Look at this design of mineral water that is being sold in the Swiss Alps. A Redditor brought a souvenir from France. These are baguette-shaped pens. Look at this narrow house in Spain. I wonder what it looks like inside, but unfortunately, the Redditor only shared the exterior. In Portugal, cell phone towers are disguised as trees. And this is a bus that can ride the roads and then turn into a boat. A Redditor spotted doors in London that have doorknobs in the center. This seems super inconvenient, but apparently the handle doesn't turn and exists only to pull the door closed. And the metal part with the keyhole has a little handle on the bottom of it. Europe is a historical place. This post box bears the mark of a king ruling over a century ago. Back in the day, red telephone boxes were in high demand. Nowadays, when every person has a cell phone or 2, not so much. So telephone boxes are being used in different ways. This one, for example, is now a smartphone repair shop. Luxembourg is a small but rich country squeezed between France, Germany, and Belgium, and they have baguette vending machines. Let's move north first to the Netherlands. Farmers border their fields with a strip of flowers and put up a sign with a QR code, where people can pay for picking the flowers. And here's just a weird installation spotted by some Redditor. In Denmark, in Aarhus, a city founded by the Vikings in the 8th century, you can find traffic lights with Vikings pictured on them. Some trash cans in Swedish subways have a separate space for cans. Homeless people can pick them up and exchange the cans for some cash. There's a giant statue of a silver moose in Norway. And these are signs on bathroom stalls depicting reindeer. Apparently, Finnish people are as polite as Canadians. On the bus, they have a button to thank the bus driver. Also, a Redditor spotted a raccoon pattern on a bus seat. We all know rocking horses. Most of you probably had one in your early days. Well, Finnish little people have rocking moose. Many people come to Iceland hoping to see the northern lights. A Redditor had a phone in the hotel which had a special button to wake the guest up when the northern lights appear. Lithuanians sometimes put fake police cars on the sides of the road to combat road speeding. Europe has been ruled by kings and queens for centuries. Even today, many countries like the UK, the Netherlands, Spain, Denmark, Belgium, and some other countries have monarchs. So, no wonder that there are hundreds of castles scattered across Europe. Poland doesn't have any monarchs these days, but it still has 500 castles. Here's a warning sign for ghosts next to one of them. In Wrocław, all landmarks have a model so that visually impaired people could touch and see them too. There's also a statue of Darth Vader in one Polish city. In reality, it's a statue of a Polish magnate who supervised the construction of a port. But from time to time, locals dress the statue in Lord Vader's costume. This sign in Poland specifically prohibits bikes, tractors, and horses to go on a highway. In some places, there's a separate line on the sidewalk for people who are walking and staring at their phones. And now we travel across the Atlantic to Africa. This is Dune 7 in Namibia, the 7th biggest dune in the world. It's as tall as the Empire State Building. An internet user shared this photo. Someone in Tanzania put a literal penthouse on top of the building. I did some research and found out that it's a hotel. Still doesn't explain the roof, but I'm totally buying it. Maybe it's marketing. Drivers in Mozambique should be careful and watch out for elephants. And this is a sign from South Africa. Watch out for penguins. And another one that asks to baboon-proof the trash bins. So baboons are the raccoons of South Africa. Trees growing through the roads aren't surprising anymore, but this is a palm tree in Morocco growing through multiple balconies. A Redditor shared a photo of a runaway horse in Israel returning to the backyard in an urban area. Urban horse encounters are relatively common in the country. A hotel in Turkey served a whole honeycomb for breakfast to this Redditor.
In India, some people have tasty chickpea and tomato curry for breakfast. It's also accompanied by puri, deep-fried flat bread. Try to say that fast. It's hollow in the middle and gets puffed up with steam when it's heated up. Some South Africans eat putu pap for breakfast. It's a sort of oatmeal, but it's made from maize and water. This dish can be eaten throughout the day, but if you're having it for breakfast, it's paired with milk and sugar. Senegalese coffee is nothing like a tall Americano. The powder they use to brew this drink is made from coffee beans, grains of saline pepper, and cloves. It's way spicier than the good old pumpkin spice latte and gives you way more energy. Over in Morocco, people prefer drinking mint tea. For breakfast, they grab a couple of freshly cooked flatbreads. They're layered and can be served with jam or honey, but sometimes you can find one stuffed with veggies or even meat. The chickpea soup called lablani is a typical breakfast dish in Tunisia. It can be pretty spicy thanks to all the onion, cumin, and herbs they cook it with. You might get a poached egg on the side, if you're lucky. In Nigeria and some neighboring countries, people have fried bean cakes for breakfast. The main ingredients are black-eyed peas spiced up with dried chili, fresh onions, and fresh red chili pepper. These cakes are deep-fried and are a popular street food. Korean breakfasts are usually pretty filling. They're made up of many banchan, which are basically side dishes. There's kimchi, a sort of fermented cabbage, a rolled omelet, marinated veggies, and jun, a sort of pancake. Wow! A Japanese breakfast can seem a bit more like lunch or dinner in other countries. You know, soup, rice, salmon, even pickled veggies. In Jamaica, people eat saltfish and ackee for breakfast. Ackee is an exotic fruit similar to lychee with a soft and creamy texture. One more tiny detail, it's kind of illegal in the US. It's mostly because the seeds are toxic, but you can eat the flesh safely as long as it's fully ripe. Better know the difference. Maybe the world's craziest breakfast sandwich ever comes from the Netherlands. They have sandwiches with candy sprinkles on them. Right, it's just sprinkles on top of buttered bread. Hagelslag, as it's called, means hailstorm, and it comes in various flavors: chocolate, vanilla, and fruit. A German breakfast might seem kind of heavy if you're used to just having a bowl of oatmeal. We're talking bread rolls, an assortment of cheeses and meats, and if need be, they can top it off with an egg or two. Coffee is the drink of choice to wash down this hearty meal. Oatmeal lovers, head to Finland. The traditional breakfast of this wonderful country consists of oatmeal they call puuru. It's served with fresh or sometimes frozen berries, sugar, and milk. The Italian breakfast is definitely not the main meal of the day. They might grab a cornetto, which is basically a croissant, maybe with a sweet filling, and a cappuccino. By the way, Italians usually only drink cappuccinos in the morning. And if you ever order a latte in Italy, you'll get a glass of milk. What we call latte in English is a cafe latte in Italy. Muesli is enjoyed all over the world, but especially in Switzerland. A typical breakfast muesli consists of oat flakes, raisins, dried fruits, nuts, usually mixed together with yogurt. In Sweden, people eat typical breakfast sandwiches called smörgås. It's a generously buttered slice of bread with some sort of topping. It can be ham, fish, or cheese, and it usually has some cucumbers, lettuce, or tomatoes thrown on there. Many people like it with hard-boiled eggs. People in Sweden are crazy about filter coffee. It tastes so good. The French breakfast is perfect for bread lovers. They have a full range of yummy breads and buns, and yup, they got that croissant thing that most people can't pronounce right. Hey, did I nail it? Maybe put a little French honk on it. Croissant. Get yourself some plain bread and some butter and jam on top, or opt for pain au chocolat. The most common drink is coffee, but many people prefer juice instead. An Argentinian breakfast can be similar to the French one. They have pastries and coffee for breakfast too. Medialunas, which is half moon in English, look a whole lot like croissants. They're just a bit smaller and sweeter. If you're not a fan of sweet pastries, grab a piece of toast called a tostada. And if coffee isn't your thing, just have a glass of orange juice. Yogurt, cereals, and eggs are mostly reserved for tourists. If you ever want to try a traditional Mexican breakfast, cook chilaquiles. Cut a bunch of corn tortillas into pieces and simmer them in salsa. The tortillas get a bit soft. Next, add some fixins: avocado, soft cheese, even chicken. Put some rice and beans on the side and buen provecho. Want something lighter? Mexico has awesome pastries. There's one that's shaped like a shell, and one that looks like two ears stuck together. A Peruvian breakfast looks really exotic for those who've never been there. One of the traditional dishes is tacacho con cecina. Hope I got that right. It's basically roasted plantain with bits of pork. It's a popular type of street food, too. The two most important things for a Brazilian breakfast are bread and, not exactly a toughie, coffee. The favorite kind of bread for many Brazilians is the French roll, which should be generously buttered before eating and might be followed by a few cold cuts. Tropical fruits like papaya aren't exotic at all in Brazil, so don't be surprised to see them on your table when you travel to Rio. Colombians have dozens of cool breakfast recipes. In Bogota, the capital, you can find changua, which is egg and milk soup with cilantro and stale bread softened in the broth. Another hearty dish is a calentando, made of reheated rice or bean leftovers, served with sausages, avocado, and eggs. In Costa Rica, people usually eat rice and beans for breakfast too. Surprise, surprise. Unlike in Colombia, Costa Ricans grill plantains. They're like bananas but a lot less sweet, instead of sausages. Drinks are simple: coffee or juice. Getting hungry yet? One more country where rice for breakfast is super common is Malaysia. The way they make it is really cool though. It's cooked in coconut milk and served with a variety of side dishes. It can be a boiled egg, a cucumber, anchovies, or even peanuts. Eggs in the form of an omelet and cake filling, deep-fried dough sticks softened in warm soy milk, twisted pancakes stuffed with veggies. If any of that sounds yummy to you, you should try a Taiwanese breakfast at least once. Wash it down with a variety of warm soy milks. There's plain or black, which is milk seasoned with sesame powder and peanuts. A Hong Kong breakfast wouldn't be complete without its very own milk tea. It's all about the technique they use to brew it. The sock-looking cloth that filters it is really thick. When the black tea finally comes out the other end, don't forget to add some evaporated milk and sugar to get that authentic creamy flavor. Now, don't get this one wrong. If you see sausages, eggs, and roasted meat for breakfast, it doesn't mean it's an English breakfast. Take a closer look. See that rice? Sweet bacon marinated in brown sugar and soy sauce, and a cup of hot chocolate. Welcome to the Philippines, and enjoy your meal. It's scrumptious. If you ever travel to Indonesia, don't miss your chance to try some black rice coconut milk-based porridge for breakfast. Disclaimer, it's actually not black, it's more purple. It's called, I'm gonna try this, bubur ketan hitam. Was I even close? This stuff is especially yummy when topped with sliced bananas and cinnamon. They also have papeda, an oatmeal thing made of sago flour. It's starchy, sticky, and looks like pudding, or slime. People in Myanmar are used to eating a hearty breakfast soup called mohinga. It's bursting with flavor. It has ginger, fish paste, lime juice, chili pepper, cilantro, and onions. The soup's made with catfish and even has noodles in it. Salty, sweet, spicy, and sour, all at the same time. If there was a contest for the biggest breakfast in the world, the Irish would take the grand prize. Just think, a traditional Irish breakfast has bacon, white pudding, black pudding, hash browns, fried eggs or scrambled eggs, a couple of sausages, beans, and probably some fried liver. Already figured out how to burn up all those calories? There are many myths around arguably the greatest structure ever built by humans, the Great Wall of China. Some say it's so grand that it's visible from space. Others claim that you can see it from as far as the moon. Other theories suggest that the builders of the wall were left inside. Well, sorry to disappoint you, but all these impressive stories are just myths. But even with those stories busted, the Great Wall of China is an impressive and truly breathtaking structure. So let me tell you its true story. Today, China is one of the most populated countries in the world, counting as many as 1.4 billion residents. It's also one of the oldest nations in the world. It has 3,500 years of continuous written history, but the civilization existed long before that. There is a theory that while the European continent, for example, was most likely reached by humans from Africa, China wasn't populated by settlers that came from somewhere else. Some people believe that the Chinese civilization got formed from local Stone Age people who lived on the territory since the prehistoric period. So now, the Great Wall of China. It's truly big even by today's standard, stretching for over 13,000 miles. To imagine it better, it's almost 5 times the distance between New York and Los Angeles. Or even a bit greater than the distance between the North and South Poles. Even in modern times, people have never built anything close to this big. Of course, it didn't take a day to build the Great Wall of China. 2? Keep going. In fact, the wall was being built for centuries. Maybe you know that ancient cities had walls around them to protect themselves from invaders. Yes, Chinese cities had them too. The first Chinese emperor united the country in 220 BCE and got a brilliant but very ambitious idea to turn all city walls into one big wall that would defend the country's border against attacks from the north. A trusted general directed the construction, enrolling a big group of workers, soldiers, commoners, and convicts. Back then, the wall was built of rammed earth and wood. In some places that were strategically important, the sections of the wall overlapped to provide maximum security. The walls were around 26 feet high on average. But the Great Wall didn't yet look like the construction we know today. Every next emperor would pick up the big wall project, strengthening and extending it, repairing, but also modernizing construction techniques. Some used bricks to build it. Others moved on to granite and marble blocks. Watchtowers and platforms weren't there from the beginning as well. They were added by Ming emperors. The watchtowers made it possible to communicate with other parts of the wall through smoke and fire messages. So, the wall is quite inconsistent in terms of material, but it only adds more charm to the construction and shows how much effort and time it took. The reasons why some parts of the wall have been standing for centuries and are still in good condition is glutinous rice flour. Turns out, this sticky rice mortar is almost like cement. It's very strong and waterproof, sealing the bricks so tightly together that even sneaky weeds can't grow between them. You may also notice that some bricks have writings carved on them. They were left by the workers who were building the wall. The purpose of those writings is quality assurance. They contain such information as location, quantity, and responsible officials. So, in the case of some problems with the quality of materials or constructions, it would be known who should be held accountable for it. Recently, a research group has looked through official historical documents of the Ming Dynasty that ruled China from the 14th to the 17th centuries. They came across records of secret doors in the Great Wall, so they decided to find them, They used a flying robot to capture continuous centimeter resolution photos of the wall. They photographed 90% of the wall that was built during the Ming Dynasty and discovered the remains of over 220 secret doors along the wall. Some of them have a specific width and height that allows only one person to go through. Others are large enough to allow 2 horses to pass at the same time. Why are the doors there? Well, the Great Wall's main goal was to protect the country from the enemy. Building doors that could let the enemy in would undermine the whole point of having a wall. So, of course, the doors were secret passages. They perfectly matched the surroundings topographically, and the exit on the outside was camouflaged with bricks so that it was almost completely indistinguishable from the brick wall. The wall was never just a defensive wall, and it was never completely closed. It could be opened on demand. It was also a structure used for trade and commerce, communication between inside and outside the wall, and of course, for defense and spying. Some doors were used for trade with the other side. Through smaller doors, a person would sneak out to spy on the enemy that lived on the other side. The hidden gates were also useful for a sudden attack. As you remember, some gates were camouflaged with brick on the outside. The exit was so indistinguishable that the enemy had no idea exactly where it was located. The inside entrance for Chinese soldiers was hollow, so they could walk through the wall and break the camouflaged exit gate from the inside, starting their surprise attack. Now, even though the main point was to prevent outsiders from getting into the city, the wall wasn't too effective on that matter. It could still be climbed over or marched around. So the wall was being watched at all times, and the guards gave signals to the troops if they saw the enemy approach. Also, the wall provided more time to mobilize and bulk up the country's forces or lure the enemy troops into a difficult strategic position. The construction stopped at the end of the 19th century. The wall lost its strategic and military importance due to technological advances. Over the centuries to today, only 8% of the Great Wall is in good condition, and the rest is damaged. Also, around 1/3 of the wall has disappeared without a trace, due to both natural erosion and human damage. I guess you could say it's now just a pretty good wall. As you remember, the first parts of the wall were built out of rammed earth and wood. These are not the most unfailing materials if we're talking about thousands of years. Also, destructive farming methods have turned large areas into a desert and contributed to erosion. Also, many bricks were taken away from the wall in the last century to be used in building farms and houses. The wall is being deconstructed stone by stone even today, but this time by tourists. Quite a few of them take a stone as a souvenir. That's a total of a lot of stones, considering that over 10 million tourists visit the Great Wall every year. Since 1987, the wall has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site, highlighting that it has an outstanding importance to humanity. The wall is one of China's 56 World Heritage Sites, second place among countries with landmarks protected by UNESCO. Who's first, you ask? Well, the top spot, with 58 World Heritage Sites, belongs to Italy. And do you know that the wall isn't only a famous tourist attraction, but also the location of the Great Wall Marathon? It's a marathon that was established in 1999 and is one of the most challenging ones in the world. You guessed right, people run along the wall, including all the steps. There are 3 distances, so that participants can run a full marathon that is 26 miles, a half marathon that's 13 miles, or just have a fun run of 5 miles. It was a fine summer day in July 1518 in the beautiful city of Strasbourg in Alsace, part of modern-day France. Our mysterious story began with a woman named Trophia. As the tale goes, at one point, out of the blue, she went out into the street and began to dance. The problem was, it didn't seem like she enjoyed dancing. She didn't even have any music playing in the background. It looked more like a series of uncontrolled twists and turns. So, what made this woman behave in such a strange way? More so, Why did so many people follow in her footsteps in the following days and weeks? That small group of people that initially gathered around Trophia kept on dancing outdoors despite the scorching heat. They moved their arms wildly and swayed their bodies even as their clothes began to get drenched with sweat. They danced through the night and into the next day. Despite their exhaustion, hunger, thirst, and pain in their feet, they continued to dance for days without stopping. As time passed, more and more people joined in the dance. At one point, it was estimated that hundreds of people were participating, all moving in the same frenzied manner. Now, just so we're clear, this was not a typical club rave we're used to these days. People looked like they were moving without their consent. The dancing continued even as some of the people started collapsing in front of the horrified onlookers. Authorities had to step in at one point, surely, but they couldn't explain why this bizarre dancing phenomenon occurred in the first place. To this day, we've yet to discover the nature of this mysterious event, which lasted about 3 months in total. We can look at the facts, though. For starters, even the local physicians back then didn't really have any idea what was going on. Most of them were stumped and could only explain it as the result of a thing they called hot blood. They thought it was somewhat similar to a fever. Ooh, could this have been the ancestor of disco fever? Hardly. These days, with all the available technology and information, it doesn't make any sense at all. Fever alone doesn't make people dance. Physicians and local authorities thought that the best and only way to cure this behavior was for the individuals to dance until this fever, this urge, simply disappeared. Locals even set up a stage and brought professional dancers along with a band to provide music. The strange episode finally ended in September when the dancers were taken to a mountaintop in hopes they could request help from some sort of higher spirits that could end their misery. Weirdly enough, similar events took place in Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands, even before this event, but none were as large or as serious as the one in 1518. Years after the incident, Paracelsus, a physician, wrote a series of books on this dancing condition after the incident in Strasbourg. He was pretty famous for his work on using chemistry in medicine. He believed that this behavior was not caused by bad luck or unnatural forces, but instead by something in people's bodies that gave them a ticklish feeling. This is what affected their judgment and caused the movements. He basically said that the people had an extreme case of tickles. Some scientists have claimed over the years that the dancing frenzy was caused by some sort of food people may have eaten, which could have made them sick. Some of them have even suggested that the culprit might have been a fungus called ergot. This fungus grows on grains used for baking bread and has a chemical that can seriously affect people's judgment. Others don't believe this to be possible because people can't dance for days just because of their exposure to the fungus. Also, not everyone would have reacted the same way. The outbreaks of uncontrollable dancing happened in areas with different climates and crops, too. It's highly unlikely that this fungus would have been present in all these locations. Another theory was suggested by John Waller, an American medical historian, who thought the dancing phenomenon of 1518 was caused by something much simpler, people being very stressed out. He pointed out that these types of behavior could happen when people were under a lot of pressure. As a result, they start to believe in scary things and behave in unusual ways. If we look at the information we have from back in the day, in all fairness, people in Strasbourg had a lot to worry about. If the weather was bad, their crops were affected, so food was often scarce. Waller also suggested that people were pretty superstitious too. The locals in Strasbourg believed that if they didn't make a certain higher spirit happy, they would be forced to dance to pay for their disobedience. Perhaps we'll never know the true reason why people suddenly started dancing that day under the hot summer sun. It doesn't mean the story hasn't influenced literature. Uncontrollable dancing had a captivating effect on those who saw it. This idea is also shown in the famous fairy tale called The Red Shoes, written by Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. The story mentions a special pair of red shoes that forced the wearer to dance until they simply couldn't handle it anymore. Sure, this story had another meaning altogether, to warn against vanity. But it also suggests that dancing may become problematic if done excessively. Should you ever find yourself on a dance floor filled with energetic people, it might be hard to stand still. You'll feel inclined to at least bounce from one foot to another from peer pressure, if not because of the music. Now, let's not forget, though, dancing can mean so much more. Music and dances are important parts of everyday life in many cultures around the world. And there is no other place on earth where dancing is more valued than in Africa. In these cultures, dances tell stories and are not just for fun. They talk about history, show emotions, and help bring people together. A lot of African tribes are famous for their dances, like the Maasai tribe of Tanzania and Kenya and the Zulu tribe of South Africa. In most African villages, everyone dances to the beat of drums, and the whole community joins in by singing and playing along. What's special about African culture is its polycentric dance. That means that different parts of a dancer's body move to different beats in the music. This makes it unique but complicated to learn and can take a long time to master. Even though different groups of people in Africa do this type of dance, there are still many differences between them. Another special type of dance takes us to a different continent altogether. It's called the haka, and it is a traditional Maori dance from New Zealand. It's performed by men, women, and children as a form of expression, challenge, or celebration. It can be accompanied by chanting and shouting, and it can be performed standing still or moving forward. Locals often perform it at significant events, such as weddings. It's known as a way to show strength, bravery, and unity, and can be used to intimidate opponents. It's so important to locals that it's become a pre-game ritual for the New Zealand national rugby team, the All Blacks. Not to mention, it's even protected by law. Asian traditions have special types of movements too. Kabuki, for instance, is a type of Japanese theater that includes both dancing and acting. It started in Kyoto in the 1600s, and these days it features only male actors. They play various characters in funny shows with naughty jokes. Over time, Kabuki became a 5-part performance that could be about Japanese history, family drama, or dance. The actors use special movements and faces painted with white powder and bright colors to show their emotions. The theater also has special effects, like hidden doors and a spinning stage, to make the show more exciting and keep the audience entertained for a whole day.
300,000 people and over 80,000 horses. Yep, that's Iceland. The breed they have there is very specific, hardy, long-lived, and because of it, internationally popular. These horses can be found in North America and Europe too, but they can have certain features people from Iceland don't want their breed to have. Because of that, the Icelanders wanted to avoid mixing their horses with other breeds, so they passed a law over 1,000 years ago that said no horse imports. That's right, even if they give you some of their own horses, you can't take them back. No chewing gum in Singapore. Vandals used to stick their chewing gum on door sensors or would find some other way to mess with public transportation, so the country had to spend around $150,000 annually to clean that. It was easier to ban it by law, so no gum can be bought, sold, or blown into bubbles over there. Not a good idea to import them either. Going to Greece? Good. Have a safe trip. And pick the right shoes. Ever since 2009, no high heels are allowed at the Acropolis. Not that Greeks have anything against stilettos, but they simply wanted to protect their ancient ruins from damage those pointy things can cause. That, and the fact that it's not really practical for such terrain anyway. In the Italian city of Milan, it's illegal to frown in public. Or at least it was a couple of centuries ago. Through difficult historical times, Milan had to create a way to stand out, which is why there was a law requiring people to smile and generally be in a good mood in public places. Germany has highways where you can drive over 100 miles per hour. But if you get crazy with speed and run out of gas while still on a highway, you'll pay a nice fine for that. Are you 1 to 2 miles away from the gas station and want to get there on foot? Better not. That's another fine. Germans make it your responsibility for filling your car. And walking along the highway is not that safe, as is leaving your car on the side of the road. A Winnie the Pooh t-shirt. Ah, that brings back some good old memories. Well, memories are sometimes better left at home. Since Winnie doesn't wear pants, Poland decided to ban this character, so you can't have it on your clothes, around schools or playgrounds, no matter what age you are. Just in case you ever wake up and decide it's time to do some hiking in Switzerland without your clothes on, don't. For some unknown reason, some travelers made this type of hiking a thing in Switzerland a couple of years ago. So Swiss officials kindly ask you to keep your clothes on. Greetings from New Zealand. If you want to spend your Sunday afternoon flying with a rooster in a hot air balloon, you might have to find another country to do it, because here, it's illegal. Sorry. Staying in their neighborhood, in 1966, there was a law that prevented you from flying a kite in Australia in a public space if that bothered other people. Luckily, 1966 was a long time ago, so no one will remember this if you decide to have some flying kite fun in a park. Hopefully. While you're there, you can't tie your goat to your vehicle. Also, no dressing as Batman and Robin. You don't want to prove to law enforcement you're not actual vigilantes, right? In some cities, taxi drivers must have a bale of hay in their trunks at all times. At least, they had to until 1980. This law came from the olden days, when horses were still all the rage. And you can't just fill a horse with fuel now, can you? Moving to the United States now. If you're in Washington, don't even think about going after Bigfoot. They passed a law in 1969 where Bigfoot was proclaimed to be an endangered species. So, they didn't say anything about the Yeti though. In Vermont, there used to be a rule prohibiting clotheslines, as some people voted against unsightliness of others' linen and underwear hanging in everyone's view. That's why they made a new regulation. You can't forbid people to put up clotheslines. One rule against another. Yep, that should work. Shh, can you hear that? Someone's talking behind this door. Oh, I wonder what they're saying. Stop right there! At least if you're in Oklahoma. The law says you can't secretly wander around and, accidentally, overhear someone's conversation and then repeat or publish it later. So if you have anything to share, go tell it to the people of Oklahoma. Your secret is safe there. If you ever take a walk in Nevada and then decide to lay down on the sidewalk and take some rest, think twice, since that's illegal there. Don't sit either. You won't get away with it. Nuances, you know. If you're from Baltimore, Maryland, remember not to bring your lion to the movies. I know the big cat wanted to see it badly, but rules are rules. Also, while you're there, remember a couple of more things you shouldn't violate. No saying bad words in public places. No eating while swimming in the ocean. And no sleeveless shirts in public parks. You shouldn't throw bricks onto a highway in Iowa, unless you get written permission from the city council. Well, when you think about it, it's fair enough. If you don't feel like looking at large shiny billboards all over the city, go to Hawaii, since they banned those in 1920. Well, definitely not the only reason to visit Hawaii, but it's good to know. Meanwhile, other states like Vermont and Maine followed suit and are proud of it. One town in Georgia takes eating fried chicken very seriously. No fork, you eat it with your hands. In fact, in 2009, a woman who celebrated her 91st birthday in a restaurant was eating chicken with a fork when the police came and told her she was under arrest. The lady was later pardoned, but careful how you eat your chicken in Georgia. What else is there to say? Speaking of which, do you know why the chicken crossed the road? Not sure, but what I do know is that these jokes certainly weren't made up in Georgia, since there, it's illegal for a chicken to do just that. You think silly string is fun? Well, a town in Alabama doesn't agree on that, because it says a firm no to keeping, using, storing, selling, manufacturing, or giving away any kind of snap pops, spray string, or similar substances. Yikes. Also, when you're there, don't drive blindfolded. It's been passed as a law, which means they take the phrase, "keep your eyes on the road," quite seriously. Okay, enough is enough. No more sleeping in a bathtub, donkey. Something people in Arizona must say to avoid breaking a law. In the 1920s, local people could see a rancher's donkey in a bathtub carried by a flood. The flood was caused because a local dam broke and the tub was abandoned in the rancher's backyard. The donkey simply decided to take a nap in it. And you know how it goes. Long day, warm afternoon, post-lunch rest, just couldn't help it. After they managed to save the animal from the sailing tub, the town decided to prohibit donkeys from sleeping in a tub. You know, just in case. In Connecticut, a pickle must bounce in order for it to be considered a pickle. In the 1940s, 2 men were even arrested for selling pickles that weren't legitimate because they didn't bounce. Now, the question is, how exactly does a pickle bounce? More from the Meanwhile in Connecticut episode. It's illegal to cross a street while walking on your hands. Oh man, that's one of the hardest ones not to break. Your best friend is having a birthday. What could you give her? A spa day voucher? Tickets to Disneyland? Dinner at a fancy restaurant? A rat? Well, unfortunately, a rat is out of the legal game if you're in Montana. Well, you've got to respect the law. Luckily, if you're from Florida, rats are a completely fine gift. At least, way better than some bigger animals. Because while you're there, you need to pay parking fees for them. Camels, elephants, horses, and the rest of the animal crew. Sorry guys, you gotta respect the rules. No matter how tired you are, you can't go to bed in Buckingham Palace if the Queen is still awake. Members of the royal family can only doze off after the Queen does. You can't take selfies with members of the royal family. The exact reasons for this ban are unknown. They can have a little conversation with you. They don't sign autographs, so nobody can forge the royal signature. Some superstars follow their example. Many people sell items with a celebrity signature for a high price. When the Queen gets up from a dinner table, everyone also has to stand up. This rule applies to members of the royal family as well. They also stand up when the Queen enters or leaves the room. The British royals are required to have natural hair color. They can't choose extravagant haircuts that can change their image. Their nails must always look perfect. The only nail polish that's allowed is pale pink. Their facial makeup has to be simple. It's forbidden to apply makeup in public. All descendants of the royal family must obtain the approval of the current monarch before proposing. This rule is in the Royal Marriages Act and has been in effect since 1772. Members of the royal family aren't allowed to eat shellfish. Dishes made out of it most often cause food poisoning. Currently, there are no strict rules of behavior when greeting the Queen, but some royal family members choose the traditional greeting. Men do a slight neck bow, and women curtsy. Such a formality is the rules of etiquette. Other people greet the Queen with a customary handshake, but only if she extends her hand. The royals should not accept gifts from individuals not personally known to them, so they don't put themselves under any obligation to the donor. They may receive flowers and foodstuff in reasonable amounts, copies of non-controversial books given by the author, and other items of small monetary value. According to the royal wedding traditions, royal brides must carry at least one sprig of myrtle in their hands during the ceremony. Myrtle symbolizes hope and love, and every royal bride must add it to her bouquet. The royal family members also have to go through passport control. Of course, they don't stand in lines like other passengers, but they still must get the stamp on their passports. Everyone does it, except for the Queen. She doesn't need a passport because all passports in the country are issued on behalf of Her Majesty. When crossing any border, the Queen is only asked for her full name, address, nationality, and place of birth. The Queen doesn't have a driver's license either. She is the only person in the UK who can drive a car without license plates. It's forbidden for 2 heirs to fly on the same plane or ride the same train. This is necessary to protect the royal family. Family trips are also prohibited, but Queen Elizabeth sometimes makes exceptions and allows that. During any event, the Queen shakes hands with many people. To prevent catching any disease, she must always wear gloves. There's a rule for holding a cup of tea. The thumb and index finger should support the upper part of the handle. The middle finger should hold the lower part. The cup handle should always direct at 3 o'clock. The royal family ladies should try drinking from the same place to avoid multiple lipstick stains on the edge of the cup. British royals are to master the art of the right handshake. The proper way to do it is to maintain eye contact and make 2 shakes. This is necessary not to maintain contact with people for too long and to show that royal family members treat everyone with equal respect. Every royal dinner is about following hundreds of rules and protocols. Seating of guests, the layout of cutlery, the proper serving dishes, following etiquette during meals, and much more. For example, according to etiquette, the Queen talks to the person on her right during the first course. When the second course is served, the Queen communicates with the guest on the left side. Members of the royal family should know and respect the customs, traditions, and rules of etiquette of the countries they visit. They are also always accompanied by a professional translator who helps in unclear situations. At any events at Buckingham Palace and beyond, women must take off their hats after 6 p.m. and wear tiaras. This rule applies only to married women. It's not a strict rule, but the royal family ladies are advised to stand and walk down the stairs, keeping their chin straight and parallel to the ground. As they descend the stairs, their hands should always be at their sides. One of the main rules during royal trips is to wear appropriate clothes. The royal family is forbidden to travel in simple, ordinary outfits, sneakers, hoodies, or jeans. They should always look perfect. That's why they wear strict business suits or dresses. It's also important that members of the royal family add elements of local culture to their outfits. For example, a maple leaf brooch on a trip to Canada. The Queen should wear bright outfits during her trips so that she can be seen from afar in a crowd. There are special assistants for outfits. They travel to countries weeks and even months in advance before the royal family visits. They plan what outfits to pick up for the royals, so they blend in with the local landscape and views. They check the patterns and colors of clothing so it wouldn't mean something bad and wouldn't be offensive to locals. The assistant finds out in advance which places the Queen will take off her shoes or where she may need a handkerchief. Her travel wardrobe is well planned to the smallest detail. There always has to be something black in the wardrobe during royal trips. If one of the members suddenly passes away, everyone should look appropriate as a sign of mourning. During trips to other cities and countries, members of the royal family can't spend time the way they want. Any visit consists of official meetings and dinners with senior government officials. There is about an hour left for walking and exploring local attractions. Every step of the royal figure is planned minute by minute, from lunch starting time to its ending, or when they need to get in a car, and so on. They get most of their rest time while moving from place to place. The royal family members must travel throughout Britain and the Commonwealth. In the past, it was necessary, so the royals knew how ordinary people lived, and people needed to know what their rulers looked like. Since television and the internet appeared, the family's journey has been more symbolic. The visits demonstrate that the people are protected. Trips to other countries are often associated with a charity. Members of the royal family speak at conferences addressing the current global problems. They also establish and improve diplomatic relations. The people who organize these trips have a lot of responsibilities too. For example, a special assistant goes to all the countries that Her Majesty plans to visit, about 6 months before the start of the Queen's journey. In these countries, they study the local ways of life, culture, people's behavior, current problems, the political situation, and they designate dangerous places. Members of the royal family should have at least a little knowledge about the life of the country they're visiting. Talented assistants help them in this. A whole group of people with the head of a household and food management among them arrive at the countries the royals plan to visit in advance. They create an individual menu for each heir. They also instruct foreign chefs not to cook dishes with garlic and a huge amount of spices to prevent the royals from getting bad breath. By the way, the Queen doesn't like garlic. Nobody puts it in meals. One of the former royal chefs revealed some of the Queen's all-time favorite foods, telling the world she's an absolute chocoholic, but also likes steaks. Her Majesty preferred to keep it secret because otherwise all the cooks would only serve her favorites. Royal family assistants also tell the hotel staff what each member of the family's favorite drink is. Specially appointed doctors visit all countries in advance. They check all the hospitals of those countries that Her Majesty and other royal members will visit. The doctor learns the quality of the local medical system. They need to know where there can be a shortage of certain meds and bring them with them. A personal first aid kit for each family member is prepared for all occasions.
Oh, you're dining in Paris with a full belly of French onion soup and a mouthful of double chocolate soufflé. Okay, enough of that bad accent. The waiter approaches asking how your meal was, and mouth full, you give a satisfied expression and make the A-OK gesture. You expect to see happiness on the waiter's face, but he looks at you with irritation. Well, it turns out that making a circle with your index finger and thumb does not mean okay in certain countries. In France, it means zero or worthless. Instead of praising the delicious food, you called it worthless. Oops. In Venezuela, Turkey, and Brazil, it's a hand gesture you shouldn't use either. In these countries, this is a sign that will offend pretty much anyone you flash it at. Enough said. Just give them your biggest smile and wait till you finish what's in your mouth to give your proper thanks. All over the world, giving a thumbs up is seen as a positive thing. It's an expression of your liking towards something that everything is good. In parts of Italy, West Africa, Iran, and Greece, though, it carries a stigma as an incredibly offensive gesture. When visiting Malaysia, you use this digit to point at things. So next time you're trying to hitchhike in these countries, you should reconsider sticking your thumb out for a ride. You might never get picked up. Trying to order two of anything, or showing someone the peace sign in the UK, Australia, or New Zealand is fine, as long as you don't have your hand the wrong way. Do this gesture wrong, and you're giving a very offensive hand signal, which isn't going to win you many friends. So, make sure that when you have your index and middle fingers pointed up in the V shape, your palm is facing outwards, and you'll have a great time, mate! Bowing is used a lot in East Asian cultures to greet each other and guests. The deeper the bow is, the more respect you are being given. Fortunately, most Japanese don't expect foreigners to understand the bowing etiquette right away. They'll generally also accept a handshake or a nod, but being familiar and practicing your bowing etiquette before going to Japan will impress all the locals. How low can you go? Using your index fingers is considered impolite in several European, Latin American, and African nations. It's particularly rude in China, Japan, and Indonesia when pointing at a person. The gesture might be taken as you singling someone out to blame or insult them. If you ask for directions in the Philippines, you might be left scratching your head, wondering where they're pointing. Don't be alarmed. The locals use their lips instead of raising their hands. When in doubt, wherever you are in the world, just gesture toward a person or place using your entire hand. You might think that sticking your pinky finger out makes you look fancy, but in China, it's frowned upon. This gesture is the same as giving a thumbs down and meaning that something is making you unhappy. When taking photos with others, you want to be respectful and don't want to make any obscene hand gestures. Two gestures to avoid, in particular, are sticking up only your pinky finger and pointing at something with a dirty object, like a used fork or a chopstick. Now, it's fun to eat with chopsticks, but you might accidentally cause offense if you put them down the wrong way. When you're in China, South Korea, or Japan, don't make the mistake of sticking your chopsticks upright in a bowl of rice. This is considered bad luck. Oops. If you have to put your chopsticks down, simply place them on the side or across the bowl instead. Likewise, when eating in South Korea or China, don't ask someone to pass you some food. In these countries, you have to join in the action and grab what food you desire, and you're not going to offend anyone if you take that last bite either. In some places, It's acceptable to blow your nose while at the dinner table. Not all of us are even prepared for the sudden trickle of the nose. But as long as you excuse yourself and turn away, everything is okay. Except if you're vacationing in Japan, China, or South Korea, where the chilies can make your nose runny very quickly. So never blow your nose in public. If you must clear your nostrils, consider leaving the table and blowing your nose in the restroom or hiding away from any other observers while being quiet. It's considered rude and unhygienic to the people around you. Always use a paper tissue, not a handkerchief, and throw it away after use. Fiji is one of the top destinations in the world. Beautiful beaches and friendly people. Spending your vacation on this island, you're bound to meet a few local Fijians that'll want to shake your hand for a very long time. It's customary to hold your hand for the entire time that you're exchanging greetings, no matter how long. You should also make sure not to pull away too quickly. It's considered very rude if you end the handshake abruptly. If you are in India, you put your hands together instead of shaking a person's hand. Holding your hands in a prayer formation, tilt your head down slightly and greet the person with Namaste with your hands close to your chest. Crossing your arms means nothing in most countries. Maybe you're cold, bored, or it just feels more comfortable. In Finland, though, it's likely to send the wrong kind of message. Having your arms crossed means major disrespect. Finnish people see this as a sign of arrogance and defiance. It's done mainly to tell the people around you that you're looking for trouble. Yikes. This body language will be taken as a dare, so you're likely to be confronted if you do it. Specifically, avoid crossing your arms at people directly. You don't want to cause any trouble if you're over there on holiday. It might be tempting to shake hands with a person as soon as you meet them in Russia, but if it's in a doorway, forget about it. It's not the end of the world if you forget this simple rule, but some Russian people consider it to be very unlucky. Step all the way through the doorway before you extend your hand for a handshake. This goes for restaurants, homes, shops, and just about anywhere else you can think of with a doorway. Avoid this simple mistake and you'll save yourself some trouble and bad luck. The head is the most sacred part of the body in Thailand, so patting anyone on the head can be seen as a serious offense. In the United States, patting or ruffling someone's hair is meant to be playful or even an indication that someone's done a good job. But in Thailand, it's best to keep your hands away from other people's heads to avoid disrespecting or making them feel unclean. It's also wise to not point with your toes, as feet are considered the dirtiest part of the body. While on holiday, the last thing you want to be doing is insulting people. Looking at your watch in the middle of a conversation can be considered extremely rude in the Middle East. It looks like you're in a hurry to get away from the person you're talking to. Even if you've got an appointment for something, you don't want to be rude. Let the conversation run its natural course before checking the time. In Arabic culture, once communication has started, it must take its time. Get it? Don't ever use the palm out, fingers up stop gesture in Greece. You might not like the outcome if you do this to a local. This gesture is a huge insult to Greeks, a stigma that dates back to the Byzantine times. Likewise, in South Korea, don't hail a cab or wave someone over to you with your palm facing up. If you do, you might be stuck there for hours. Waving your hand like that is how Koreans summon their dogs. The proper way to wave is to stick your arm out while having your palm facing down and moving your head up and down vertically. This isn't the only thing to keep in mind in South Korea. If someone older than you offers a drink, the proper etiquette is to receive it with both hands and then turn your head away as you take the first sip. It's a show of respect, and respecting one's elders is taken very seriously in South Korea. Hey, want to have your very own bright side to your hoodie? Click the link below to choose your pick.
It's your first trip to Egypt, and your new friends there invited you for lunch. The food seems a bit dull, so you decide to spice it up with salt and pepper. You don't see it on the table, so you ask the host for it, and you notice everyone's shocked. It turns out It's a huge insult to the cook when someone wants to change the original taste of the food on their plate. The cook made it that way for a reason, and wanting to spice it up means showing that the dish wasn't good enough. You're used to doing it as a kind gesture around the world, but don't tip waiters, taxi drivers, or hotel workers in Japan. They can get offended because they already get paid for providing you with good service, and there's no need for extra money to make it any better. If you really want to show appreciation, just say thank you. It's okay to tip private guides, tour companies, and interpreters. You can put any amount that feels right to you in an envelope and hand it down to them. If you want to impress your new Japanese friends or colleagues, take some time to study chopstick etiquette. When you master the art of holding chopsticks, remember not to rub them together. People do it to remove splinters, so it might look like you're unhappy with the quality of the pair that your host provided you with. Don't put your chopsticks vertically in your bowl of rice. This way, it can be seen as an offering to the deceased. Don't wave chopsticks in the air or use them to point at things. Both are considered really rude. The same is with moving things with your chopsticks or the hand holding them. It looks disrespectful. Plus, you're likely to spill things. When in Italy, don't order a cappuccino after noon. The locals don't do it because they believe the milk and foam turn this drink into a meal, and it's not good for digestion. Also, be prepared to enjoy your coffee standing at the bar and pay for it before you even order it. First, you pay the cash register, then show the receipt to the server to get your drink. Are you a big fan of chewing gum? Well, you'll have an uneasy time in Singapore. Using, selling, and importing chewing gum is banned there, and you'd have to pay up to several thousands of dollars for doing it. This law was introduced in the 1990s to make the city cleaner and keep the local fast trains up to schedule. When they launched a new transit system, passengers stuck gum onto train door sensors, causing some serious delays. With the new rules, this problem was solved. The no gum policy, along with many other strict rules, did help to make Singapore a really clean and fine city. Pun intended. If you absolutely can't imagine your life without chewing, the local authorities recommend replacing the gum with bananas. When someone asks you to pass them something, like salt at the table in Bolivia, don't give it directly to them. Hand it to the person sitting next to them, and they'll pass it for you. If the person next to you is asking for that little favor, you still can't hand it straight to them. The person next to you will have to help. This table etiquette comes from a superstition that handing something to someone directly into their hands brings bad luck. For the same reasons, you can't reach across the table or stand up to pass something or toss it to someone. And don't forget to keep both hands on the table when you aren't eating. It might look like you're trying to hide something if your hands aren't visible at all times. When you arrive for a meal in Jordan, the hosts may give you some bitter Arabic coffee as a warm welcome. Don't try to stretch it for the rest of the evening. The polite thing to do is empty it fast. Only when everyone's done with the drink do people go back to socializing. As you pass the empty cup to the hosts, make sure to jiggle your wrists. If you just pass it without jiggling, it will mean you're asking for a refill. Don't rush to arrive at an event on time in Venezuela. People might think that you're rude or greedy. The polite thing to do is to be 10 to 15 minutes late. Events scheduled for 7 o'clock will often begin at 8 o'clock or later. A popular story goes that in the 1980s, a foreign reporter arrived at a press event more than an hour late. When he saw the room was mostly empty, he went to apologize to the host for missing the event. The host then told him he was the first reporter to arrive. It's quite interesting because the clocks in this country have officially been 0.9 seconds ahead of the rest of the world for years. Are you planning to travel by bus in Ireland anytime soon? Don't forget to thank the driver for the ride on your way out of the bus. You'll hear an overwhelming majority of locals do it loudly, as it's basically not optional. Choose the gift wisely if you've been invited to a home in Vietnam. It's okay to bring fruit, sweets, or incense. Handkerchiefs are believed to be a symbol of a sad farewell. and cutting tools are a sign of cutting relationships, so don't bring those. Wrap your gift in colorful paper and don't opt for black. The locals believe this color to be a bad omen. When you present the gift, hold it with both hands. And don't be surprised if the hosts don't open it right away. It's done after the giver has left. Don't leave anything on your plate in India. It's a sign of disrespect for the food you were served. Food is considered sacred in the country, so it would upset your hosts a lot. So, wash and dry your hands before starting the meal. Don't forget to praise the cook, and wait for the eldest to stand up before you leave the table. In South India, it's common to serve food on a banana leaf. You gotta fold it over from the top when you're done with the meal. Folding it from the bottom means you weren't satisfied with what you got. It might be a good conversation starter elsewhere, but don't brag about your achievements in Denmark. The locals believe that everyone is equal, so you won't hear them talk about their successful careers or talents or how special they are. And they expect the same from you. If you're looking for a good topic, they'll gladly talk to you about the greatness of their country. The Danes are really proud of it and all its wonders. If you're going on a trip to Germany and plan to drive on the famous Autobahn, make sure to tank up before you hit the road. Stopping, parking, making U-turns, and backing up on this super speedy highway is illegal. Yes, even if you have to stop because you've run out of gas, you'll have to pay a fine since you were supposed to plan things better. And although the Autobahn technically doesn't have a speed limit, watch out if you're passing by urban areas like Frankfurt, Berlin, and Munich, or construction works and heavy traffic. There will be special speed instructions for these spots. In case you're planning to explore Cyprus by car, quench your thirst before you start the vehicle. Drinking anything, including water, isn't allowed while driving on the island. So if you can't resist snacking or drinking behind the wheel, prepare to pay a fine. In Ethiopia, you gotta think twice before choosing a gift for someone. They see it as a debt they'll have to repay in the future. So, if you bring something really expensive, the receiver will either have to spend a lot of money on a return gift or feel indebted to you. If you're planning a trip across the Atlantic, you should prepare for more than just the jet lag. Depending on where you land, life in Europe can seem a bit unusual. So it's best to do a bit of research before you travel. Speaking of quirky little differences, one of the first things you may notice is the lack of AC. Hope you like fresh air because central air conditioning isn't everywhere like you might be used to. In Europe, you might find that someone's flat, office, or even a full restaurant doesn't have an AC unit. That's because some Europeans rely solely on their windows to get a breeze. However, bigger places like grocery stores and malls usually keep things well ventilated. Water in European restaurants is not always free either, even though this is common practice in the US. Sure, you'll get a fancy glass bottle at most places, but you'll also see it on your bill. More so, if you ask for water, be sure to specify if you'd like it still, because you might get sparkling water instead. Forget about getting a glass full of ice water too. You might get cold water from the fridge, but Europeans don't do the whole tons of ice thing like they do in the US. If you enjoy sightseeing on a budget, you know how helpful those public toilets can be. After walking for hours, it's great to stumble upon a bathroom where you can freshen up a bit. Well, you better have the equivalent of 50 cents or so in your pocket, because in many European countries, you've got to pay to use these public restrooms. Even fast food restaurants might charge you for the privilege. The best workaround is to head to a mall. Their restrooms are usually free. Also, in the US, bathroom stalls often have a gap at the bottom. Some say this design was chosen for cleaning purposes and accessibility. In Europe, however, stalls tend to reach the floor for more privacy. Name days are also kind of a big deal in Europe, despite not being so popular in the US. Each day of the year is like a mini birthday celebration for someone with a specific name. Europeans who follow this tradition see it as a second birthday, and even some take it more seriously than their actual birthday. Even the way we perceive things can be totally different depending on where you're from. Take a 100-year-old building in Europe that's practically brand new, but in the US, it's considered old. Depending on who you ask, some Americans might even consider an object that is 200 years old to be ancient. Europeans reserve this word for something that comes from a time before the Middle Ages. However, when it comes to distances, it's quite the opposite. Europeans might find driving 100 kilometers, or about 60 miles, to be a lot, while for Americans, that's a short trip. It does make sense if you think about it though, because Europe is way more crowded. In fact, the entire European Union is only about half the size of the US. Either way, Europeans are always on the move, whether it's inside their continent or jetting off somewhere else on the planet. It's probably because most European countries are so small by comparison that people grow up thinking it's normal and easy to cross borders all the time. Even the appliances tend to be different when comparing the two regions. Take washing machines, for instance. In Europe, most of them only hook up to cold water, and they load from the front. In the US, it's common to have machines that use both hot and cold water and load from the top. On that note, make sure to research the type of electrical plug used in your European country of choice before traveling. You might find you'll need special adapters to be able to use your phone charger or curling iron while on holiday. Thankfully, most hotels are prepared for these issues and can offer adapters on demand, free of charge. Fridges might seem a bit different too. That's because tiny ones are the norm in Europe, except for large families who invest in bigger fridges and freezers. It's not all bad, especially if you enjoy sharing groceries with roommates, less food wastage, and more frequent trips to the store for fresh food. Might also want to polish your metric system knowledge before heading to Europe too. Everyone there is using meters, grams, liters, and Celsius. Sure, people in the US might learn the metric system in school, but they stick to the other system for their everyday lives, with yards, miles, pounds, and Fahrenheit. Make sure you also double-check dates and times before making any reservations. Europeans write their dates like day, month, year, while Americans flip it to month, day, year. Also, in the US, the week usually begins on Sunday and wraps up on Saturday. But in Europe, it starts on Monday and ends on Sunday. Be on the lookout for the different time format too. In some countries, if someone says it's 14, that translates to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Even advertising might seem a bit different when you first land in Europe. In the US, you might see people wandering around in inflatable costumes on the street to promote local business, but that's a rare sight in Europe. Also, those massive billboard signs you often see along American highways aren't available in most European countries. They're usually against the law because it's believed that drivers should be focused more on the road ahead. And such advertising techniques can be too distracting. Moving on to street names and shopping hours. In North America, especially the USA, it's common to name streets with numbers, like 5th Avenue or 16th Street. But if you head over to Europe, you'll find that streets usually have actual names. In some really rural spots in Europe, you might even stumble upon roads with no names at all. In Europe, there's also a cool tradition of naming roads that connect cities after the city they lead to. Shopping hours in Europe can be a bit confusing too, at times even frustrating. You've probably heard of the siesta in Spain, with some Mediterranean countries having similar customs. It's when shops and businesses take a little afternoon break. Smaller venues in European cities might close up for lunch breaks or have shorter hours on weekends. Some might even stay shut altogether on specific days. It's best to check out the local schedule if you're planning some retail therapy while traveling in Europe. Those shopping hours can really affect your plans and how easily you can get your hands on the stuff you need. While Americans tend to smile more, even to strangers, it can seem a bit unusual to people from other countries. There's a reason behind it though. You see, over the years, the US became this melting pot with people coming in from all over the globe. Being friendly and agreeable became crucial to bridge the gaps created by different cultures and languages. Sometimes it's more helpful to be nice than to be brutally honest. TV watching preferences can also seem different in Europe. Take Norway, for example, where you'll find this cool concept called slow TV. You know how we sometimes zone out in front of a show for hours? Well, Norwegians have turned that into a national sport, if you'd like. Think of it as the visual equivalent of background music. None of us get glued to the screen watching hours of wood burning or knitting marathons. But you might want to check it out when you need some background entertainment that doesn't demand your full attention. Speaking of taking things slow, you might have also heard about a concept called hygge. It's this whole way of life up in the Nordic European countries. Some think these life principles could be the secret to happiness. It's about creating a life that's free from annoying or overwhelming stuff. It's also about prioritizing your relationships and striving to always have a positive attitude. In some ways, the United States is a whole different world, totally different from every other place. So let's take a look at what's normal there that baffles people from the outside. One of the first things a foreigner notices when entering the country is flags. American flags everywhere. On buildings like schools and houses, and on clothes like shorts, t-shirts, you name it. Throughout history, Americans have changed 27 flags. The current American flag was only adopted in 1960 and is so far the longest-lasting flag of the country. It wasn't created by the authorities, though. In 1958, there was a contest for a design of the new American flag, and the winning flag was made by a 17-year-old high school student from Ohio. The reason why Americans love their flag so much is national pride. But why not so many countries do the same? Well, some countries avoid displaying them for historical reasons. Other countries only raise the flag on special occasions to highlight the importance of the event. Still, some countries display their flag as often as Americans do. In Denmark, people are quite proud of their flag too. They decorate the winter holiday tree and birthday cakes with them, and you can always find stickers with Danish flags, red and white candles, and other goodies with the flag in a grocery store. People in Sweden are also very much into their flag and have flagpoles everywhere. Now, let's go to a restaurant, shall we? Many things there are very specific to the States. Like, for example, tons of ice in every drink. Turns out there is some history to this preference. America has always had a lot of ice as a resource, since New England's lakes and rivers have a lot of those during winter. Centuries ago, before refrigerators and other helpful cooling machines, that kind of cold resource was very valuable, and the States started exporting ice to other parts of the world. And also, of course, consuming it themselves. They started to put ice in their hot drinks, in contrast to the British, who were always drinking their beverages hot. The ice in the drinks has become an American thing, and it was also considered a rich person's drink. Yep, the ice would also show a person's status. Of course, with time, when refrigerators appeared, ice became available to everyone, and Americans started to add it to their drinks commonly. The habit remained, but also, ice drinks are very refreshing, which is especially important in the hot south of the country. But if you come from abroad and don't want your drink freezing cold, always specify it to the waiter. The next striking thing is the huge portions that are served, and there is a reason for that too. It wasn't always like this, but in the second half of the last century, due to pesticides and fertilizers, farmers started to be able to grow more food than they used to. The government caught on, subsidizing them to grow even more food. So, the amount of available food increased. Over time, companies started to increase the sizes of their portions. Why serve less food and get less money if you can serve a bit more and also charge more? That's good for business, and it's a win-win. Customers get more food for just a little bit more money. So, larger portions stuck. Okay, now we need to take a little toilet break. And, surprisingly, there are a lot of foreigners who find American toilets weird. First, What's up with those huge gaps in bathroom stalls? Let's start with a more obvious part: gaps on the bottom of the doors. Those are quite common, even outside the US, and they serve several purposes. First, you can see if there's a person inside without trying to break into an occupied stall. Second, it provides some ventilation and makes it easier to clean the floor in the bathrooms. The gaps on the sides are more questionable. Of course, people on the outside can't see everything going on behind the door, but still, there's not much privacy whatsoever. In most other countries, the gaps are either negligible or non-existent. So what's up with them in America? I did some research. Some sources say that since every inch of material is expensive, wide gaps are made to reduce the costs of bathroom stalls. Other sources say that when people feel exposed like this, they have fewer incentives to do something illegal in public bathrooms. Next observation: American toilets have way more water in their bowls in comparison to, for example, European ones. The reason is that those types of toilets use different flashing systems, and an American one needs more water to flush effectively. In many countries, especially in Asia, most bathrooms have bidets, which are used for after-toilet cleaning, and tourists don't understand why Americans wouldn't adopt those too. After all, if you step in mud, you'll go and wash your foot instead of just wiping it off with a tissue. The same logic works here. Also, it reduces toilet paper usage. So it's more sustainable and it's environmentally friendly. Some say there's a strong stigma in America around bidets that is extremely hard to overcome. Others say that toilets in the US don't have enough room to install a bidet, so they don't have those, especially if there are other well-known ways. Before we leave the restaurant, we need to tip the waiter. Tipping in the United States is way more common than in most other countries. You're expected to tip any service person who helped you with something. While some kind of tipping exists in some other countries, the extent of it is smaller. And there are also countries like Japan and Denmark where tipping isn't a thing at all. Those countries have minimum wage laws that dictate decent wages employers must pay their workers. This way, the need to pay money to service stuff isn't pushed onto the customers. By the way, here's one more fact about the prices. Probably the craziest thing in the States tourists have to adapt to are prices in stores. The tax isn't included into the displayed price and is added on top while checking out. So people who are short on money can't pre-calculate the price they will have to pay to make sure that they have enough money. But really, why is it so? The main reason behind such a weird policy is transparency. This way, taxpayers know how much tax they pay and can resist raising the tax rate in case it comes on the national agenda. Also, it allows buyers to compare the costs of products across states fairly, since tax rates may differ. So, if the tax isn't included, you compare the actual bread costs between Alabama and Alaska, for example. In some places in America, it's not very easy to get around unless you travel by car. In some regions, there's often no sidewalk taking you to the closest convenience store, or a crosswalk, allowing you to cross the road right in front of the store. The main reason for that is probably the fact that the United States is a big country with vast lands and everything is spread out. Neighborhoods can be scattered around, wide suburban territories quite far away from one another, so that's already far from being walking distance, and sidewalks aren't needed because, yes, no one's walking. Studies show that Spanish or Germans walk at least twice as much as Americans, but in those countries, everything is way closer. And last and not least, you guessed it, the imperial system. It's based on the human body. A foot is an average foot size of a person, so you might think it's quite intuitive for anyone. Well, no. Foreigners are incredibly confused with feet, inches, gallons, and Fahrenheits, and tend to convert it all to the familiar metric system. Well, in this sense, the British are even more confusing. Those guys use both imperial and metric systems. For height, it's mostly feet and inches, but for weight, kilograms. Great Britain used to have the imperial system, but later they were forced to switch to the metric system. So now, they're using a combination. Whatever helps to be more precise.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.